She had $10 left in the world. He had just lost everything worth billions. What happened next in that empty diner would either destroy them both or save them. This is a story about a single choice made on the worst night of two people's lives. A story about what happens when kindness meets desperation, when wealth crashes into poverty, and when a shy waitress and a broken billionaire single father discover that sometimes the person who saves you is the one you least expect. Stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The rain hit Chicago like it had a grudge. Emily Harper stood behind the counter of Mel's Diner at 11:47 p.m., watching water sheet down the windows in thick rivulets that blurred the streetlights outside into orange smears. The fluorescent lights inside flickered. They'd been doing that for 3 weeks now, and Mel kept saying he'd get them fixed, but Mel said a lot of things. She was alone. The cook had left at 11, muttering something about his cousin's poker game. The last customer, a truck driver nursing cold coffee for 2 hours, had finally paid and left around 11:30. Now it was just Emily, the hum of the ancient refrigerator, and the sound of rain hammering the roof like it was trying to get in. She counted the bills in her apron pocket for the third time. 2 fives. 47 cents in change. That was it. That was everything she had left until Friday, and Friday was 4 days away. The electricity bill sat in her studio apartment, unopened. She knew what it said. Third notice. She'd been eating 1 meal a day for the past week, usually whatever mistakes the cook made that Mel would have thrown out anyway. Yesterday, it had been burned hash browns and a cup of coffee. Today, nothing yet. Emily pressed her palms flat against the cool laminate counter and closed her eyes. She was 30 years old. She'd been working at this diner for 4 years. Before that, another diner across town. Before that, a coffee shop that went under. She'd dropped out of community college when her mother got sick. Needed the money, needed to be there. Her mother died anyway. That was 7 years ago, and Emily was still trying to figure out what came next. Nothing came next. That was the problem. Life just kept being exactly this: tired feet, grease-stained uniforms, counting change, watching the clock. The bell above the door chimed. Emily's eyes snapped open. She straightened up, pulling her practiced smile into place. The one that said she was happy to serve you, the one that hid how badly her feet hurt, how scared she was about the bills, how bone-deep tired she felt every single day. But the smile faltered when she saw him. The man who stepped through the door looked wrong. Everything about him was expensive. She could tell that much even with the rain plastering his dark hair to his forehead, even with his clothes soaked through. The suit was tailored, probably cost more than she made in 6 months. His shoes were leather, the kind that weren't supposed to get wet. He wore a watch that caught the flickering fluorescent light and threw it back like a tiny sun. But his face looked like someone had scooped out everything inside and left just the shell. He stood in the doorway, dripping onto Mel's ancient linoleum, and for a long moment he didn't move. Just stood there with his hand still on the door, rain pouring down behind him, staring at nothing. "Hi," Emily said softly. "Come on in. Get out of that rain." He blinked, focused on her. His eyes were dark, shadowed with exhaustion or grief or something Emily recognized but couldn't name. He was maybe 32, 33, handsome in that sharp-edged way that belonged in boardrooms and penthouse apartments, not in Mel's Diner at midnight. He let the door close behind him and walked to the counter. His movements were stiff, mechanical. When he sat down on one of the red vinyl stools, water immediately pooled beneath him. "Coffee," he said. His voice was rough, like he'd been shouting or crying. "Please." "Of course." Emily grabbed a mug, one of the good ones, no chips, and poured. She set it in front of him and watched as he wrapped both hands around it like he was trying to absorb the heat through his palms. He didn't drink, just held it. Emily wiped down the counter, even though it was already clean. She'd learned a long time ago that people sometimes needed silence, needed to not be asked if they were okay, because obviously they weren't. After a long moment, the man spoke without looking up. "What can I get for—" He reached into his pocket, pulled out a handful of change, counted it out on the counter with meticulous care. $2.35. Emily looked at the change, looked at him, looked at the suit that probably cost $3,000, at the watch that was definitely worth more than her car. if she still had a car, which she didn't because she'd sold it 8 months ago. Something was very wrong here. "That'll get you the coffee and some toast," she said carefully. "No." He pushed the change toward her. "The coffee and whatever food that'll buy. I'm—" He stopped, swallowed hard. "I haven't eaten since yesterday." The way he said it, like he was confessing something shameful, like he couldn't quite believe the words coming out of his own mouth, made Emily's chest tighten. She'd been hungry. She knew what it felt like to count change for food, to make choices between eating and keeping the lights on. She knew the particular kind of exhaustion that came from working hard and still not having enough. But this man didn't look like someone who'd ever had to make those choices, which meant something catastrophic had happened to him, something recent. "Okay," Emily said. She picked up the quarters and dimes and left them in a neat pile. "Let me see what I can do." She went back to the kitchen, her mind racing. Mel locked up the register at night, took most of the cash with him. The card reader had been broken for a month. He kept saying he'd fix it, but see above re, things Mel said. She had her tips, but her tips were those 2 5s in her apron, her last $10. Emily stood in the fluorescent glare of the kitchen and looked at the grill, looked at the walk-in fridge, looked at the eggs and bacon and bread and potatoes. All of it Mel's. All of it inventory she wasn't supposed to touch outside of paid orders. Then she looked at her apron pocket. $10. 4 days until payday. The electric bill already overdue. She thought about the man's face, the hollow look in his eyes, the way his hand shook when he counted out his change. "Screw it," she whispered. Emily pulled out her 2 5s and tucked them into the register with a mental note to write it down in the log. Then she turned on the grill. She made him everything. Scrambled eggs, fluffy and soft. Bacon, crispy but not burned. Hash browns with onions, the way the cook made them when he was actually trying. Toast with butter and jam. She even sliced up some of the tomatoes from the walk-in, arranged them on the side of the plate like they did for the breakfast special. It took her 20 minutes. Her hands moved automatically. Crack eggs, whisk, pour, flip. She'd done this 1,000 times, 10,000 times. But tonight it felt different. Tonight it felt important in a way she couldn't explain. When she brought the plate out, the man was still sitting exactly as she'd left him, hands wrapped around his coffee mug, staring at nothing. She set the plate down in front of him. He stared at it, then looked up at her, confusion creasing his forehead. I only have enough for Tuesday special," Emily said quickly. "Late night discount. $2.35 gets you the works." "There's no Tuesday special. New thing we're trying." She poured more coffee into his mug. "Mel's idea. Boost late night traffic." He looked at her for a long moment. His eyes were intelligent, sharp even through the exhaustion. He knew she was lying. She could see him knowing it, but he didn't argue. "Thank you," he said quietly. The words sounded rusty, like he hadn't said them in a while, or like he meant them in a way that went deeper than just the food. Emily nodded and retreated behind the counter, busying herself with wiping down the coffee station, even though she'd already done it twice tonight. She watched from the corner of her eye as he ate. He started slowly, mechanically, like someone going through motions. Then hunger seemed to wake up inside him, and he ate faster, more urgently. He finished everything on the plate, soaked up the last of the eggs with the toast, drank 2 more cups of coffee. When he was done, he sat back, and for the first time since walking in, he took a full breath. Some of the hollowness had left his face. Not all of it, but some. "I need to tell you something," he said. Emily paused mid-wipe. "You don't need to tell me anything." "No, I do." He ran a hand through his wet hair. "My name is Ethan Cole. Does that mean anything to you?" She thought about it. The name tickled something in the back of her mind. Maybe she'd seen it in the business section of newspapers left behind by customers. Maybe heard it on the radio. But Chicago was full of important people with important names, and Emily had never had much reason to keep track of them. "Should it?" she asked. Something that might have been relief flickered across his face. "No, I suppose not." He was quiet for a moment. "I ran a company. Tech infrastructure, cloud computing. Boring stuff unless you're into that kind of thing." "Okay," Emily said, not sure where this was going. 24 hours ago, I was worth about $800 million. His voice was flat, reciting facts. I had controlling interest in a company I built from nothing over 10 years. I had a good team. I had investors who trusted me. I had a plan for the next 5 years. He stopped. His jaw worked like he was chewing on something bitter. And then I got outmaneuvered. Hostile takeover. They'd been planning it for months, buying up shares through shell companies, getting people on the board I thought were allies. This morning they called an emergency meeting. By noon, I'd lost my company. By 3 p.m., my lawyers told me there was nothing I could do about it. Completely legal, just ruthless. Emily set down her rag. I'm sorry. The worst part? Ethan laughed, but it was a hollow sound. The worst part is I saw it coming, sort of. Had this gut feeling for weeks that something was off. But I was too focused on the work, on the next product launch, on hitting our targets. I missed it. I missed all of it. He looked down at his hands. I have a daughter, he said quietly. Sophie, she's 6. I became her sole parent when my wife died 3 years ago. Cancer, ovarian. She fought hard, but he trailed off. Anyway, Sophie's the reason I built the company into what it became. Wanted to give her everything, you know? Security, opportunities. The kind of life where she'd never have to worry about anything. Emily felt something crack open in her chest. She'll still have you. Will she? Ethan's voice was raw. After I lost the company today, I went home. This penthouse apartment, my lawyer called while I was sitting there, told me the board is contesting my severance package. They're going to drag me through litigation for years. Everything's tied up. Assets frozen. I've got about $3,000 in my personal checking account and whatever cash I had on me. He gestured at the change still sitting on the counter, which is now $2 and change less. The building where my apartment is? The company owns it. I've got maybe 2 months before they push me out. Sophie's private school? I paid tuition quarterly. Next payment's due in 6 weeks. My car, my insurance, the nanny who's been with Sophie since her mom died, all of it's about to disappear. His hands clenched into fists on the counter. I sat there tonight in that apartment, looking at all the things I'd bought, all the status symbols, the proof that I'd made it, that I was someone who mattered. And I realized none of it was mine. Not really. It was all connected to the company, to the image, to this version of myself that stopped existing at noon today. Emily didn't know what to say. The scale of his loss was so far beyond her experience that she couldn't find words big enough to hold it. I thought about my daughter, Ethan continued, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. Thought about telling her we have to leave our home. Thought about her asking why, asking what happened, asking if it's her fault somehow, because that's what kids do. They make everything about themselves. Thought about the look on her face when I explained that Daddy failed. He stopped. When he spoke again, his voice was different, harder. I stood on the balcony tonight, 43rd floor, looked down at the street, and I thought, just for a second, that it would be easier to step off than to face tomorrow. The air in the diner went very still. I didn't, he added quickly. Obviously. But I thought about it, and that scared me more than losing the company, more than losing everything. The fact that I could think that I could look at my life and see only one way out. Emily's throat was tight. But you didn't. No, I thought about Sophie waking up tomorrow and me not being there. Thought about her growing up with that. The same way she grew up without her mother. And I couldn't. So I came down from the balcony, put on my coat, walked out into the rain. No destination, just walking. He gestured vaguely at the diner. Ended up here, middle of nowhere. Haven't eaten all day. Checked my wallet, and I'd forgotten to hit the ATM. Just had whatever coins were in my pocket from buying Sophie a hot chocolate last week. She likes those fancy ones with the whipped cream and the chocolate shavings. His voice softened when he talked about his daughter. Emily noticed that. Noticed the way the hardness cracked when he said her name. And then you made me this. He touched the edge of the empty plate. And you lied about it being a Tuesday special. And you didn't ask me what was wrong. Didn't pry. Didn't make me feel like a charity case. You just saw someone who needed help and you helped. It's just food, Emily said, but her voice came out rough. No. Ethan looked at her directly. It's not. You have any idea how rare that is? Real kindness, no strings attached, Nothing wanted in return? I've spent 10 years in boardrooms with people who smile and shake your hand while planning how to stab you in the back. I've been to charity galas where rich people bid thousands of dollars on ugly art so they can feel good about themselves while doing absolutely nothing to help anyone. I've seen every kind of performance, every angle, every game. He pulled something from his inside jacket pocket, a business card, slightly damp. He slid it across the counter to her. This isn't that. What you did, feeding a stranger with probably your own money, don't deny it. I know that look. That's real. That's human. That's... He stopped, searching for words. That's the thing I'd forgotten existed. Emily picked up the card. It was heavy stock, probably expensive. Embossed letters. Ethan Cole, followed by a title she didn't understand, and a phone number. I don't know what happens next, Ethan said. I don't know if I get my company back, or if I end up starting from zero, or if I spend the next 5 years in legal hell while my daughter watches me fall apart. But I know this. I won't forget what you did tonight, and someday, somehow, I'm going to return the favor. You don't owe me anything, Emily said. Maybe not, but I'm going to pay it back anyway. He stood up, water still dripping from his clothes. What's your name? Emily. Emily Harper. Emily. He tested the name, like committing it to memory. Thank you. Truly. He walked to the door, then paused with his hand on the handle. Can I ask you something? Sure. Why'd you do it? You clearly don't have much yourself. So why spend your last money on a stranger? Emily thought about all the true answers. Because I know what hungry feels like. Because you look like I feel every day, like you're drowning and no one's throwing you a rope. Because I'm tired of living in a world where no one helps anyone. Because my mother taught me that the only thing that matters is how you treat people when you don't have to treat them well. But what she said was simpler. Because you needed it. Ethan nodded slowly. The world needs more people like you. The world needs more people like all of us want to be, Emily said quietly. We just forget sometimes. He smiled, the first real smile she'd seen from him all night. It transformed his face, made him look younger, less defeated. Keep that card. I mean it. Anything you need, anytime. You call that number. Then he was gone, back out into the rain. Emily stood behind the counter holding his business card, listening to the bell above the door chime its tiny goodbye. The diner felt emptier than before, quieter. She looked at the empty plate, the coffee mug, the $2.35 still sitting on the counter in a neat pile. Then she looked at the register where she'd put her last $10. 4 days until payday. The electric bill waiting at home. 1 meal a day, maybe. Emily picked up Ethan's change and added it to the register. $2.35. She wrote it all down in the log. $12.35, Tuesday special, paid in cash, so Mel wouldn't think she was stealing. Then she finished closing up the diner like she did every night, wiped down the counters, turned off the grill, checked that the door was locked, killed the lights except for the one by the register that stayed on all night. She walked home in the rain because the bus had stopped running an hour ago. Her apartment was 7 blocks away. By the time she got there, she was soaked through, just like Ethan had been. The electricity was still on. Small miracle. Emily peeled off her wet uniform and hung it over the shower rod to dry. She'd wear it again tomorrow, only had 2 uniforms and washing cost money at the laundromat. She made herself a cup of instant coffee using the electric kettle, then sat on her secondhand couch in the dark, too tired to turn on the lights, too wired to sleep. She thought about Ethan Cole, about losing everything, about standing on a balcony 43 floors up and thinking about stepping off. She thought about his daughter, Sophie, 6 years old, just lost her mother 3 years ago, about to lose her home, her school, everything familiar. Emily knew what that felt like. Not the wealth part. She'd never had wealth. But the losing part. The ground falling away part. The what comes next and how do I survive it part. She pulled Ethan's business card from her apron pocket and looked at it in the dim light from the street. She wouldn't call. Of course she wouldn't call. People said things in moments of crisis, made promises they didn't mean. Tomorrow he'd wake up and remember she was just a waitress who gave him a free meal. He'd be embarrassed. He'd hope she wouldn't actually call. That's how the world worked. Emily set the card on her coffee table and finished her instant coffee. Then she went to bed, setting her alarm for 5:30 a.m. because her shift started at 7 and she needed time to walk to the diner. She fell asleep thinking about a man in an expensive suit counting change for coffee and a 6-year-old girl who is about to learn that nothing in life is permanent, not even the things you think can't be taken away. The next morning started like every morning. Alarm at 5:30. Instant coffee. The same uniform, dry now, but still carrying yesterday's smell of grease and coffee. The walk to the diner through streets just starting to wake up. Emily unlocked the door at 6:45, flipped the sign to open, started the coffee brewing. Mel would show up at 8, the cook at 9. Until then, it was just her and the early morning customers. Construction workers needing caffeine before their shift, cab drivers ending their night routes, insomniacs who'd given up on sleep. She went through the motions mechanically, her body knowing the routine so well her brain barely had to participate. Pour coffee, take orders, deliver food, clear plates, repeat. She didn't think about Ethan Cole, didn't think about last night, just focused on getting through today, and then tomorrow, and then the day after that. That's how you survived. One shift at a time, one bill at a time, one day at a time. At 8:15 a.m., the bell above the door chimed. Emily looked up from refilling coffee for a regular at the counter, expecting another construction worker, or maybe the postal carrier who usually stopped by around this time. Instead, she saw a man in a charcoal suit, then another behind him, then 3 more. They kept coming. Men and women in expensive clothes, the kind of people who definitely didn't eat at Mel's diner for breakfast. They filed in like they owned the place, filling up booze, pulling extra chairs to tables, their collective presence transforming the shabby little restaurant into something that felt like a boardroom. Emily stood frozen with the coffee pot in her hand. And then Ethan Cole walked through the door. He looked completely different from last night, dry, obviously. But more than that, he looked like someone who'd remembered who he was. The expensive suit fit him now, instead of hanging off his shoulders. His hair was neatly styled. He moved with purpose, with authority. Behind him walked Mel, her boss, looking absolutely bewildered. "Emily," Mel said, his voice pitched higher than normal. "These folks they're asking for you?" Every person in the diner was looking at her. At least 30 people, maybe 40. The breakfast regulars at the counter looked confused, coffee cups halfway to their mouths. Ethan walked up to where Emily stood behind the counter, still holding the coffee pot like it was the only solid thing in a world that had suddenly tilted sideways. "Hi," he said. There was something in his eyes, warmth, gratitude, something that made her chest tight. "Hi," she whispered back. He turned to address the room. His voice shifted, became the voice of someone used to speaking to crowds, to commanding attention. "Most of you probably wondering what we're doing here," Ethan said. "In this particular diner, at this particular time. Let me tell you a story." Emily's heart was pounding. She set down the coffee pot before she dropped it. "Last night," Ethan continued, "I lost everything, my company, my reputation, the work of 10 years, gone in a single afternoon. I won't bore you with the details of corporate warfare. What matters is that by midnight, I was walking through the rain with $2 in my pocket and nothing else. No plan, no hope, nothing." The room was absolutely silent. Even Mel had stopped moving, standing by the register with his mouth slightly open. "I came into this diner," Ethan said, gesturing around at the worn booths and cracked linoleum, "because I was hungry, and it was the only place still open. I had enough money for coffee and maybe some toast. That's what I ordered. That's what I could afford." He looked at Emily, and she saw something in his expression that made her throat tight. "Emily Harper, this woman right here, took my order. She saw a stranger who was soaked and exhausted and obviously going through something. And you know what she did? She paid for a full meal out of her own pocket, pretended it was some Tuesday special so I wouldn't feel like charity. Fed me when she probably couldn't afford to feed herself." "Now wait a minute," Mel interjected. "The register was short this morning. Emily, did you—" "I logged it," Emily said quietly. "It's in the book, $12.35. I was going to explain when you came in." "You used your tip money," Mel said, realization dawning. "Your own money." "Yeah," Emily said. She didn't look at him. Couldn't take her eyes off Ethan. "I went home last night," Ethan said, his voice carrying to every corner of the diner, "and I couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about that meal, about the kindness of a stranger who had every reason not to help me, who could have turned me away, could have told me sorry, exact change only, but instead chose generosity, chose compassion. He pulled out his phone. So I made some calls, called every ally I had left, every investor who'd ever told me I was brilliant, every board member who'd said they believed in my vision. I reminded them what I'd built. I showed them proof of the illegal trading my ousted partners had done to engineer the takeover. I called in every favor owed to me over 10 years in business. A slow smile spread across his face. By 6 a.m. this morning, I had enough votes to call an emergency shareholder meeting. By 7:30, we'd reversed the takeover. It's going to be messy. There will be lawsuits, investigations, probably congressional hearings because the SEC is very interested in the stock manipulation involved. But the company is mine again. My daughter gets to keep her home, and I get to keep fighting. Someone in one of the booths started clapping, then another person. Within seconds, the whole diner erupted in applause. Emily felt dizzy. "But that's not why I'm here," Ethan said, holding up a hand for quiet. The applause died down. "I'm here because last night Emily Harper saved my life. Not with anything dramatic, just with basic human decency. And I told her I would pay it back. I meant it." He gestured to the people filling the diner. "These are some of the most successful business leaders in Chicago. CEOs, investors, venture capitalists, philanthropists. I called them this morning after I got my company back, told them what happened, told them about Emily. And every single person in this room agreed to help." Emily's hands were shaking. "Help with what?" Ethan pulled out a folder from his briefcase, set it on the counter between them. "You mentioned to Mel once that you'd had to drop out of community college when your mother got sick, that you'd always wanted to finish your degree." Emily's blood went cold. "How did you also—" "Mel's very chatty when someone offers to buy the diner," Ethan said with a slight smile. "Don't worry, I didn't. He turned me down. Very loyal to this place. But he told me about you, how hard you work, how you never complain, how you've been here 4 years and never once called in sick, never once asked for a raise even though you deserve one." He opened the folder. "Full scholarship to Northwestern University, tuition, books, housing, everything. Courtesy of the Cole Foundation, which I established about 3 hours ago specifically for this purpose." Emily stared at the papers, at the Northwestern letterhead, at the words "full academic scholarship" typed in official university font. "That's not all," Ethan continued. "You'll need income while you study. I'm offering you a position at Cole Technologies, executive assistant to me personally. The salary is $75,000 a year to start. You'll work 20 hours a week, enough to be comfortable but not so much it interferes with your studies. Full benefits, healthcare, dental, vision, retirement matching." The room spun. Emily gripped the edge of the counter. "And because I know you won't accept any of this as charity," Ethan said quietly, "let me be clear, this isn't charity. This is payment for what you gave me last night. You gave me hope when I had none. You reminded me what matters. You probably saved my life. This," he gestured at the folder, "doesn't come close to repaying that debt, but it's a start." Emily couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. One of the women in the booth stood up. She was maybe 50, dressed in a sharp blazer, her silver hair cut in a precise bob. "My name is Patricia Chen. I run the Chen Foundation. We focus on educational opportunities for disadvantaged youth. What Ethan's describing, what he's offering you, it's extraordinary. But I want you to know it's not just his money funding this. Everyone in this room contributed to your scholarship fund. We all wanted to be part of this." "Why?" Emily managed to whisper. "Because we're tired," Patricia said simply. "Tired of a world where kindness is rare, where compassion is seen as weakness, where people like you, people who work hard and give even when they have nothing, get overlooked, while people like us get richer for doing basically nothing except having money already. What you did last night, that small act of feeding a hungry stranger, it reminded all of us what actually matters. And we want to support that, support you." Another man stood up, Asian, maybe 40, with kind eyes behind expensive glasses. "David Wong, I run a venture capital firm. Here's what I want you to understand, Emily. Ethan called me at 5:30 this morning, told me this story. I was skeptical. Thought maybe he'd exaggerated, maybe he was feeling emotional after almost losing everything. So I did my research. Called Mel, called your landlord, called the community college you attended. Everyone said the same thing. You're the most genuine, hardworking, kind person they've ever met. You're not looking for handouts. You pay your bills even when it's hard. You help other people even when you can barely help yourself. That's rare. That's worth investing in. But more people were standing now. A black woman in her 60s. Teresa Johnson. I own the Johnson Hotel Group. I'm funding your housing for all 4 years. A young white guy with startup casual clothes. Brandon Kelly, tech entrepreneur. I'm covering your books and supplies for the duration. An older white man with silver hair. Robert Chambers. I run Chambers Investment Bank. Whatever expenses aren't covered by everyone else, send them to me. Emily felt tears burning her eyes. I can't. You can, Ethan said gently. And you will. Because you deserve this, Emily. Not because of what you did for me, though that's part of it, but because you deserve a chance. Everyone deserves a chance to build something better. Mel cleared his throat. Emily had forgotten he was there. He looked uncomfortable, shifted his weight from foot to foot. Emily, he said gruffly, you're the best waitress I've ever had. I don't want to lose you, but if you don't take this opportunity, I'm going to be very disappointed in you. Mel, take it, he said firmly. You've been working this counter for 4 years, watching life pass you by. Go live it. Emily looked around the diner. At all these successful, powerful people who'd come here at 8 in the morning to tell her they believed in her. At Mel, who grumbled constantly but apparently had been bragging about her to strangers. At Ethan, who stood there with hope in his eyes. Not just hope for himself anymore, but hope for her. She looked down at the folder on the counter. The scholarship papers. The job offer. The promise of something beyond counting change and burned hash browns and wondering if she'd make rent. I don't know what to say, she whispered. Say yes, Ethan said. Say you'll let us do this. Say you'll take a chance on yourself the way you took a chance on me last night. Emily picked up the folder. Her hands were still shaking. The papers felt real, heavy, official. She thought about her mother, who'd worked 2 jobs and still died with medical debt. Who'd told Emily the week before she passed, don't end up like me, baby. Don't work yourself to death for nothing. Find something that matters. She thought about standing behind this counter for 4 more years, 10 more years, 20. Thought about being 50 and still counting change, still wondering what came next. Then she thought about Ethan on that balcony last night. Thought about the choice he'd made to step back, to keep going, to fight. Yes, Emily said. The word came out barely louder than a breath, but in the silence of the diner, everyone heard it. Yes, I'll do it. The applause was deafening. Ethan smiled, that same transformative smile from last night, the one that made him look younger, less burdened. Then welcome to the next chapter, Emily Harper. People swarmed her after that. Business cards pressed into her hands. Contact information for university admissions counselors who'd been pulled out of meetings to fast-track her application. Someone from HR at Cole Technologies explaining when she needed to come in for orientation. Patricia Chen hugging her and whispering, "You're going to do wonderful things." Through it all, Emily felt like she was floating, like reality had split into 2 tracks, and she wasn't sure which one she was on anymore. When the crowd finally thinned, people leaving for their real jobs, their real lives, this good deed done, Ethan remained. I know this is overwhelming, he said quietly, and I know you're probably scared. Change is terrifying even when it's good change. I'm terrified, Emily admitted. Good. That means you're taking it seriously. He paused. Can I tell you something? Sure. Well, when I called all those people this morning, when I told them your story, you know what they all said? Every single one of them said they wished they'd been brave enough to do what you did. To help someone when it cost them something. To choose kindness over self-preservation. They have money, Emily. They have power, but they don't have what you have. What's that? The courage to be decent when it's hard. Emily felt tears spilling over, couldn't stop them. I just gave you dinner. No, Ethan said. You gave me hope. You gave me a reason to step back from that balcony. You gave my daughter her father back. Don't diminish that. Don't ever diminish that. He pulled out another business card, this one different, with a personal cell number handwritten on the back. I know the other card has my office. This one's my direct line. You're going to have questions, concerns, moments where you panic and think you made a mistake. When that happens, call me. Day or night. I mean that. Emily took the card. Why are you doing all this? Because last night I remembered something I'd forgotten, Ethan said. That success isn't about money or power or winning. It's about who you are when everything gets stripped away. And you, Emily Harper, are someone worth knowing, someone worth helping, someone who makes the world better just by being in it. He checked his watch. I need to get to the office. Lots of fires to put out after yesterday's drama. But I'll see you Monday at 9 a.m. for orientation. Don't be late. He smiled. And Emily, thank you for everything. Then he was gone, leaving Emily standing behind the counter of Mel's diner with a scholarship folder in her hands and the certain knowledge that her life had just changed in ways she couldn't begin to understand. Mel sidled up next to her. Well, he said, that was something. Yeah, Emily breathed. You gonna be okay? She looked at him, at his weathered face and his stained apron and his eyes that were gruff but kind. I don't know. That's honest. He patted her shoulder awkwardly. Take the rest of the day off. Process. Tomorrow you can work your notice. I'm assuming you'll need to give notice. 2 weeks, Emily said automatically. That's proper. 1 week's fine. I can manage. You've got bigger things ahead. He paused. Your mom would be proud, you know. If she was here? That broke something in Emily. She put the folder down on the counter and just cried. Great gasping sobs that she'd been holding back since the moment Ethan walked in with all those people. Cried for her mother who'd died before anything good could happen. Cried for all the years of barely scraping by. Cried for the version of herself who'd walked home in the rain last night with $10 less and no idea what was coming. Mel patted her shoulder again, uncomfortable with emotion but trying. There, he muttered. It's good. It's all good. And it was. Despite the fear, despite the uncertainty, despite not knowing how to be the person these successful people seemed to think she was, it was good. Emily wiped her eyes and picked up the folder again. I should go home. Figure out what happens next. You do that. Mel actually smiled. And Emily, don't you dare come back here unless it's to visit. You understand? You got out. Stay out. She nodded, untied her apron, hung it on the hook behind the counter one last time. Then Emily Harper walked out of Mel's diner into the morning sunlight, carrying a folder full of promises and a future she'd stopped believing could be hers. She thought about Ethan's words, the courage to be decent when it's hard. Maybe that's all any of us had. Maybe that's all we needed. The world felt bigger suddenly, full of possibility, full of hope. Emily pulled out her phone and called the number on the Northwestern paperwork. When the admissions counselor answered, she took a deep breath and said the words she'd thought she'd never get to say. Hi, my name is Emily Harper, and I'd like to enroll. The Northwestern University campus looked like something from a movie Emily had never been allowed to watch. Stone buildings with ivy crawling up their walls. Students carrying expensive laptops and coffees that probably cost more than her hourly wage at the diner. Manicured lawns where people lounged reading books that weren't required for survival but for pleasure. Emily stood at the edge of it all on her first day, wearing clothes Patricia Chen had taken her to buy 3 days earlier. You'll need professional attire for the office, dear, and student-appropriate things for class, and feeling like an imposter in her own skin. Her phone buzzed, a text from Ethan. First day jitters are normal. You belong there. Remember that. E. She'd been texting with him over the past week, short exchanges mostly. He'd check in, ask if she needed anything, send her encouraging words when she mentioned being scared. It was strange having someone care whether she was okay. Strange and uncomfortable and necessary all at once. Emily put her phone away and walked toward her first class. Introduction to Business Management. The syllabus alone had made her want to throw up. Textbooks costing $300, expectations that students would engage in robust discourse, whatever that meant. She'd spent the last 4 nights reading ahead, terrified she'd be the dumbest person in the room. She was early. The lecture hall was mostly empty, just a handful of students scattered among the rows of seats. Emily chose somewhere in the middle, not front row eager, not back row hiding. Somewhere invisible. A girl slid into the seat next to her. Blonde, early 20s, designer bag, the kind of casual confidence that came from never having to worry about money. "Hey," she said brightly. "I'm Madison. This your first class too?" "Yeah," Emily said. "I'm Emily." "Oh my God, are you nervous? I'm so nervous. My dad keeps texting me about how important it is to make connections, build my network, all that stuff. Like, I just want to learn, you know?" Emily nodded, though she couldn't relate to having a father who cared about her education. Couldn't relate to most of what this girl was saying. "What's your major?" Madison asked. "I haven't declared yet. Still figuring it out." "Smart. I'm doing finance because my family's in banking, but honestly, I'm more interested in environmental policy. But you can't make money saving trees, right?" She laughed. Emily managed a smile that felt plastic on her face. The professor walked in and Madison immediately pivoted her attention forward. Emily pulled out her notebook. Actual paper, not a laptop, because old habits died hard, and tried to focus. But halfway through the lecture, while the professor discussed market dynamics and competitive advantage, Emily's mind drifted to the diner. To Mel probably struggling with the breakfast rush because the new girl he'd hired kept messing up orders. To the regulars who'd asked where she'd gone. To the counter she'd stood behind for 4 years, the coffee she'd poured 1,000 times. The routine that had been mind-numbing, but at least familiar. Here, everything was foreign. The language people used, the casual references to concepts she didn't understand, the way students asked questions like they'd been training for this their whole lives. Because they had been. That was the difference. These kids had grown up expecting college, preparing for it. Emily had grown up expecting to survive. After class, Madison invited her to lunch at some campus cafe. Emily made an excuse about needing to get to her job. It wasn't a lie. She was supposed to be at Cole Technologies by 1 p.m. for her first real day as Ethan's executive assistant. But it also wasn't the whole truth. The whole truth was that Madison's effortless privilege exhausted her, made her feel even more like she didn't belong. Cole Technologies occupied the top 15 floors of a glass tower in downtown Chicago. Emily stood in the marble lobby, staring at the directory, trying to calm her racing heart. A security guard approached. "Can I help you?" "I'm Emily Harper. I work here, starting today." He checked his tablet. "Ah, yes. Mr. Cole's new EA. Take the express elevator to 47. Someone from HR will meet you." The elevator moved so fast Emily's ears popped. When the doors opened, she stepped into a reception area that looked like it belonged in an architecture magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, modern furniture that was probably worth more than her entire apartment, sleek technology everywhere. A woman in her 30s approached, hand extended. "Emily, I'm Jennifer Park, head of HR. Welcome to Cole Technologies." The handshake was firm, professional. Emily tried to match it. "Let's get you set up," Jennifer said, leading her down a hallway lined with glass-walled conference rooms. "Your desk is right outside Mr. Cole's office. You'll be managing his calendar, coordinating meetings, handling correspondence, basically making sure his day runs smoothly. He's in back-to-back meetings until 3, so that gives us time to get you oriented." Emily's desk was sleek and intimidating. Three monitors, a phone system that looked like it required an engineering degree, an ergonomic chair that probably cost more than a month's rent. Everything was spotless, organized, waiting for her to mess it up. Jennifer spent 2 hours walking her through systems, protocols, expectations. Emily took notes until her hand cramped, trying to absorb information that came too fast and assumed too much. "Questions?" Jennifer asked finally. "About 1,000,000. I think I'm okay for now." "Great. Mr. Cole should be finishing up soon. Oh, and Emily?" Jennifer's expression softened slightly. "I know this is a big change. If you need anything, my door's open. Ethan, Mr. Cole. He doesn't usually hire people without experience for this position, so the fact that he brought you on means he sees something special. Don't overthink it. Just do your best." After Jennifer left, Emily sat at her new desk and stared at the monitors. On one screen, Ethan's calendar blazed with color-coded appointments, meetings with investors, calls with lawyers about the takeover fallout, lunch with someone labeled Senator Morrison, a reminder that said, "Sophie, school pickup 3:45. Sophie, his daughter, the 6-year-old who'd almost lost her father on a balcony 43 floors up. You look terrified. Emily jumped. Ethan stood in the doorway of his office, loosening his tie with one hand, holding a coffee in the other. He looked tired, but pleased to see her. I am terrified, Emily admitted. Good. Means you care. He gestured toward his office. Come on. Let's talk. His office was huge. Windows on 2 walls, a massive desk, bookshelves lined with business texts and framed photos. Emily spotted one of a little girl with dark hair in Ethan's eyes, mid-laugh, covered in what looked like finger paint. That's Sophie, Ethan said, following her gaze. Taken last year at her school art show. She made me a picture of our family, me, her, and her mom as an angel. Destroyed me for a week. Emily didn't know what to say to that. Sit, Ethan said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. He sat on the edge of the desk itself, casual, trying to put her at ease. How was your first day at Northwestern? Overwhelming. Yeah, I remember that feeling. I did my MBA there about 8 years ago. Felt like everyone else spoke a language I was still learning. You went to Northwestern? Emily blinked. I thought, people like you, you're born knowing this stuff. Ethan laughed. People like me. What does that mean? Rich, successful, confident. I grew up in a trailer park in Indiana, Ethan said flatly. My dad left when I was 3. My mom worked at a gas station and cleaned houses on weekends. I got into college on scholarships and loans, worked 3 jobs to pay for food and books. Started my first company in my dorm room because I couldn't afford the software I needed for a class, so I built it myself. Emily stared at him. I'm not telling you this to bond or whatever, Ethan continued. I'm telling you because I need you to understand something. That night you found me in the diner, I'd forgotten where I came from, forgotten what actually matters. Got so caught up in the wealth and the power and the image that I lost track of who I was before all of it. You reminded me. That's why you're here. Not because I feel sorry for you, but because you have something most people in this building don't have. What's that? Perspective. You know what it's like to struggle, to choose between paying rent and eating, to work yourself exhausted and still come up short. These people, he gestured vaguely at the office beyond, most of them have never missed a meal they didn't choose to miss. Never worried about keeping the lights on. They're smart, they're talented, but they don't understand the world most people live in. You do, and that's valuable. Emily's throat was tight. I don't know how to do this job. You'll learn. Jennifer's a good teacher, and I'm patient. Well, sometimes I'm patient. He smiled. Look, I'm not expecting perfection. I'm expecting honesty. If you don't know something, ask. If you make a mistake, own it. If something's wrong, tell me. Can you do that? I think so. Then we'll be fine. He checked his watch. I need to pick up Sophie in 30 minutes. Want to come with me? Emily's eyes widened. To pick up your daughter? Yeah, I like to do it myself when I can. Nanny usually handles it, but Tuesdays are my day. Plus, you should meet her. She's going to be around the office sometimes during school breaks, and she likes to know the people in my life. I don't know if that's Emily. Ethan's voice was gentle but firm. You're not just my employee. You're someone I trust. Someone who's important to me. Sophie's the most important person in my world, and I want her to know you. Is that okay? Emily nodded because she didn't trust her voice. They drove to Sophie's school in Ethan's car, sleek, expensive, the kind Emily had only ever seen in movies. He drove carefully, below the speed limit, hands at 10 and 2. She's shy around new people, Ethan said as they pulled into the pickup line. Lost her mom young, so she's cautious. Don't take it personally if she doesn't warm up right away. I understand, Emily said. Sophie emerged from the school building holding hands with a teacher, wearing a pink backpack almost as big as she was. When she saw Ethan's car, her whole face lit up. She ran to the car, and Ethan got out to scoop her into a hug that looked like coming home. Daddy! Her voice was high, excited. We made volcanoes today with baking soda, and they exploded everywhere. Yeah, that sounds messy. It was so messy. Mrs. Chen said it was educational chaos. Sophie noticed Emily through the window. Her excitement dimmed slightly, replaced by curiosity. Who's that? That's my friend Emily. Ethan said, opening the back door so Sophie could climb into her car seat. She's going to be working with me. Emily, this is Sophie. Emily turned in her seat to face the little girl. Sophie had Ethan's dark hair and serious eyes, but something softer in her features. She studied Emily with the intensity only children could manage. Hi, Sophie, Emily said quietly. Hi. Sophie's voice was cautious. Are you nice? The question caught Emily off guard. I try to be. Daddy says that's what matters, trying. Sophie buckled herself in with practiced ease. My mommy tried to get better, but she couldn't. Sometimes trying isn't enough. The casual devastation in those words hit Emily like a punch. Ethan's jaw tightened as he started the car, but he didn't correct his daughter. Your dad told me about your mommy, Emily said carefully. I'm sorry you lost her. Sophie shrugged, a gesture too old for 6 years. It was a long time ago. I don't remember her as much anymore. That makes Daddy sad sometimes, but he tries not to show it. Sophie, Ethan started. It's okay, Daddy. Emily seems nice. She has kind eyes. Sophie pulled a battered stuffed elephant from her backpack. This is Mr. Trunk. Say hi, Mr. Trunk. She made the elephant wave its trunk at Emily, and despite everything, the fear, the uncertainty, the strangeness of this new life, Emily smiled genuinely for the first time all day. Hi, Mr. Trunk, she said. The next few weeks blurred together in a haze of learning curves and small failures and unexpected victories. Emily burned through notebooks trying to keep track of everything. Ethan's preferences for meeting prep, the names and titles of people who called regularly, the difference between urgent and actually urgent, how he took his coffee, black, no sugar, unless it was after 8 p.m., then with cream because the bitterness kept him up. She made mistakes. Scheduled a call with London at 9 a.m. Chicago time, which was 3 a.m. London time. Accidentally sent a confidential memo to the wrong department. Forgot to order lunch for a board meeting and had to run 6 blocks to a deli in heels that were still breaking her feet in. But Ethan never yelled, just corrected, explained, helped her understand the why behind the what. And slowly, incrementally, she started to get it. School was harder, not the academics, those she could handle with enough studying, enough late nights, enough coffee. But the social dynamics, the way students formed groups based on shared histories she didn't have, the casual wealth everywhere, people complaining about internships that only paid $60,000 a year, discussing spring breaks in Aspen and summer homes in the Hamptons. Emily ate lunch alone most days, told herself it was fine, told herself she was there to learn, not make friends. But it was lonely in a way the diner had never been. At least there, she'd belonged, had understood the rhythms, known her place. Here, she was always slightly offbeat, always a step behind. 3 weeks in, Madison from her business class found her in the library. Hey, stranger, Madison said, dropping into the chair across from Emily. You've been dodging me. I haven't. You totally have. Every time I ask you to lunch, you have somewhere to be. Every time I mention grabbing coffee, you're busy. I'm starting to think you don't like me. Emily closed her textbook. It's not that. Then what is it? The honest answer was too complicated. That Madison represented everything Emily didn't have and couldn't fake. That her cheerful privilege felt like sandpaper on Emily's skin. That being around her made Emily feel poor and small and wrong. But what Emily said was, I'm just busy, school and work, and catching up on stuff I should have learned years ago. You work? Madison's eyebrows rose. Like an actual job? Yeah, executive assistant at a tech company. Wow, that's intense. How do you manage that in full-time classes? Carefully, Emily said, which was the understatement of the century. She was running on 5 hours of sleep a night, mainlining coffee, stealing moments between meetings to read textbooks, doing homework on the train. Madison studied her. You're different from most people here. I know. That wasn't an insult. Most people here are boring. Rich kids playing at being serious. You actually seem like you have something to prove. I do, Emily said quietly. To everyone who helped me get here. To myself. Must be exhausting. It was. Emily didn't say that out loud. Madison pulled out her phone. There's a study group for our business class. Wednesdays at 6, campus library. You should come. We actually work instead of just gossiping. Might help. Emily hesitated. The idea of sitting in a room with more Madisons felt awful, but she was struggling with the advanced concepts, and her pride wouldn't let her fail. "Okay," she said. "I'll try." Madison's smile was genuine. "Good. And Emily? For what it's worth, I think you're going to do better than most of us. You actually want this. Half the people here are just doing what their parents expect." After Madison left, Emily sat in the quiet library and tried to figure out if she'd just made a friend or just committed to more discomfort. Wednesday's study group was both better and worse than expected. Better because the other students, 4 of them, mix of ages and backgrounds, actually focused on the material, breaking down complex theories into digestible pieces. Worse because their casual competence made Emily feel stupid. The invisible hand theory is basically saying markets self-regulate, a guy named David explained. Supply and demand balance without central planning. But that assumes rational actors, Madison countered. Real people aren't rational. They panic buy toilet paper during a pandemic. Everyone laughed. Emily smiled but didn't contribute. She was still trying to understand the basic premise. "Emily, what do you think?" David asked. All eyes on her, her palms started sweating. I think it makes sense in theory but not in practice. Because the people with money get to decide what has value, right? And if you don't have money, you don't get a say in the market." The table went quiet. Emily's stomach dropped. She'd said something stupid, revealed her ignorance. Then Madison said slowly, "That's actually a really good point. We're all sitting here debating theory, but you just cut to the practical reality. Most economic models ignore power dynamics." "Exactly," another student, Priya, jumped in. "Like, the invisible hand assumes everyone has equal access, equal information, equal ability to participate. But that's bullshit. Sorry, Professor Wallace isn't here, I can swear. The market's rigged for people who already have resources." The conversation took off from there, everyone building on Emily's observation. She sat back, stunned. She'd said something valuable, something these smart, privileged students hadn't considered because they'd never lived it. Maybe she did belong here. Maybe not in the same way as everyone else, but in her own way. After the study group, Madison walked with her toward the train station. "That thing you said about power dynamics," Madison said. "Where'd that come from?" "Experience," Emily said. "I've been the person the market doesn't care about. You see things differently from down there." "Down where?" "The bottom." Emily shrugged. "Poverty, working poor, whatever you want to call it." Madison was quiet for a moment. "My family's rich, like really rich. I've never had to worry about money, never missed a meal, never wondered if I could afford something I needed. And sometimes I feel guilty about that, but mostly I just feel disconnected. Like I don't understand how most people actually live." "You don't," Emily said, not unkindly. "But at least you know you don't. That's more self-aware than most rich people get." "Is that what your boss is like? Rich and clueless?" Emily thought about Ethan, about trailer parks in Indiana, and working 3 jobs through college, about losing everything and remembering what mattered. "No," she said. "He gets it. He came from nothing. That's probably why we—" She stopped. "Why you what?" "Nothing. Just why we work well together." Madison gave her a knowing look, but didn't push. At Cole Technologies, Emily was learning different lessons. Office politics, for one. The way people smiled while sharpening knives. The subtle hierarchies, who mattered and who didn't, whose opinion Ethan actually cared about, versus who just had fancy titles. There was tension in the air lately. The takeover attempt had left scars. Some board members had sided with the ousters, and even though they'd lost, everyone knew who they were. Meetings had an edge now, a barely concealed hostility. Emily sat in on most of Ethan's meetings, taking notes, learning. She watched him navigate it all with careful precision, firm but not aggressive, clear about his vision but willing to listen. He was good at this, she realized. Really good. Not just at the business side, but at reading people, at knowing when to push and when to back off. One Thursday afternoon, a man named Charles Westbrook stormed into Ethan's office without knocking. Emily jumped up from her desk. "Mr. Westbrook, Mr. Cole is in a conference call." "I don't care." Westbrook was maybe 60, silver-haired, expensive suit, the kind of aggressive confidence that came from never being told no. He pushed past Emily into Ethan's office. Through the glass wall, Emily watched Ethan hold up a finger to Westbrook, 1 minute, and finish his call with careful courtesy. Then he hung up and faced the older man. The walls were soundproof, but Emily could see the confrontation playing out in body language. Westbrook leaning forward, aggressive. Ethan leaning back, controlled. Westbrook's face getting red. Ethan's expression staying neutral. It lasted 5 minutes. Then Westbrook stormed out, not looking at Emily, and slammed the door hard enough that the glass rattled. Emily waited 30 seconds, then knocked softly and entered Ethan's office. He was standing at the window, hands in his pockets, staring out at the city. "Are you okay?" Emily asked. "Westbrook wanted me to approve a merger with one of his companies. I said no. He didn't take it well." "I gathered that." Ethan turned to face her. He looked tired. He was one of the board members who sided with the takeover attempt. Only reason he's still here is because firing him would have triggered a lawsuit we don't need right now. But he's making everything difficult, questioning every decision, stirring up doubt, trying to undermine me. "What are you going to do?" "Outlast him. Build the company so strong that his influence doesn't matter. Win so completely that he either gets on board or leaves on his own." Ethan rubbed his eyes. "I'm tired, Emily. Tired of fighting. Tired of watching my back. Tired of spending energy on office politics when I should be focusing on actual innovation." Emily had never seen him like this, vulnerable, the mask slipping. "Sophie asked me this morning why I'm always on my phone," Ethan continued. "Said I used to play with her more. And she's right. I've been so consumed with saving the company, with proving I deserve to be here, that I'm failing at the thing that actually matters. Being her dad." "You're doing the best you can," Emily said. "Am I?" He looked at her. "What if my best isn't good enough? What if I save the company but lose her in the process?" Emily thought about her own mother, about all those double shifts, about coming home exhausted, about being physically present but emotionally absent because survival took everything she had. "She knows you love her," Emily said. "Kids are resilient. As long as she knows that, she'll be okay." "You sound sure." "I am. Because my mom was like you, working herself to death trying to give me a better life, and yeah, she wasn't always there. Yeah, I wished she had more time for me, but I never doubted she loved me. Never doubted she was doing her best. That mattered more than the time." Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Thank you." "For what?" "For being honest. For not just telling me what you think I want to hear." He straightened up, pulling himself together. "I have that charity gala on Saturday. The one benefiting children's hospitals. I need to go. Good optics, important donors. But I hate these things. All that performance, all that fake concern." "Do you want me to come?" Emily asked before she could stop herself. "I mean, to help. With the logistics. Whatever you need." Ethan studied her. "You sure? It's formal. Black tie. Lots of wealthy people being performatively charitable." "Sounds awful," he laughed. "It is. But if you're willing, I'd appreciate the backup. And," he hesitated, "it might be good for you to see this side of things, the philanthropy circuit, where the real money moves in this city." Emily nodded. "Okay, I'll come." She didn't tell him she'd never been to anything formal in her life. Didn't mention that she had no idea what black tie meant or how to act at a gala or what fork to use for which course. She'd figure it out. She always did. Saturday arrived too fast. Patricia Chen had insisted on taking Emily shopping again. "You need an evening gown, dear. This is important." And now Emily stood in her tiny bathroom, staring at herself in a floor-length black dress that probably cost more than 3 months of her old rent. She looked like someone else, someone sophisticated, someone who belonged at galas. The reflection was a lie, but it was a convincing one. Ethan picked her up at 7. He was in a tuxedo, looking like he'd stepped out of a magazine, and for a moment Emily forgot how to breathe. "You look beautiful," he said, and there was something in his voice that made her chest tight. "You clean up okay yourself," she managed. They drove to the gala in comfortable silence, but as they pulled up to the hotel, massive, gleaming valets rushing to open doors, Emily's anxiety spiked. "I don't know how to do this," she whispered. Ethan took her hand. His palm was warm, steadying. "Stay close to me. Follow my lead. And remember, most of these people are just as insecure as you are. They're just better at hiding it." The ballroom was overwhelming. Crystal chandeliers, tables draped in white linen, flowers that probably cost more than Emily made in a week, waiters circulating with champagne and hors d'oeuvres she couldn't pronounce, and people, hundreds of them, all dressed in expensive clothes, all moving through the space with practiced ease. Ethan kept his hand on the small of her back as he navigated the room, introducing her to people whose names she immediately forgot. CEOs and philanthropists and politicians, all smiling with their mouths but calculating with their eyes. "And this is Emily Harper," Ethan would say. "My executive assistant and a student at Northwestern. She's brilliant." Every time he said it, Emily felt like a fraud. They were at the bar when a woman approached. She was maybe 35, stunning in a red dress that hugged every curve, dark hair swept up, confidence radiating from every pore. "Ethan," she said, her voice smooth as silk. "It's been too long." Ethan's body tensed almost imperceptibly. "Victoria, I didn't know you'd be here. I'm on the planning committee this year. Surprised you didn't see my name on the invitation." Her eyes slid to Emily, assessing and dismissing in one glance. "And who's this?" "Emily Harper. Meet Victoria Chen. She runs the Chen Gallery downtown." "Patricia's daughter?" Emily asked. Victoria's smile sharpened. "You know my mother?" "She helped fund my scholarship," Emily said. "How charitable of her." The words were polite, but the tone was cutting. "And how did you meet Ethan? Through the scholarship program?" "No," Ethan said firmly. "We met independently." "Independently?" Victoria's smile didn't reach her eyes. "How mysterious." "Well, it's lovely to meet you, Emily. I hope you're enjoying your first gala. They can be overwhelming when you're not used to this world." The dismissal was clear. Emily felt herself shrinking, but Ethan's hand tightened on her back. Emily's handling it better than most people who grew up in this world. She actually cares about the cause instead of just being here to be seen. Victoria's expression froze for a fraction of a second. Then she laughed, brittle and sharp. "Still so earnest, Ethan. Some things never change. Enjoy your evening." She walked away, hips swaying in that red dress, and Emily exhaled shakily. "Sorry," Ethan muttered. "That was—" "Who is she?" Emily asked. "Really?" Ethan was quiet for a moment. "We dated 5 years ago, before Sophie's mom got sick. It ended badly. She wanted someone who'd be an accessory to her social climbing. I wanted someone who'd be a partner. Turns out those are different things." "She doesn't like me," Emily said. "She doesn't like anyone who has my attention and isn't her." Ethan turned to face Emily fully. "Don't let people like Victoria make you feel small. She's got money and connections, but she doesn't have substance. You do." Emily wanted to believe him. Dinner was announced, and they found their assigned table. Emily was seated between Ethan and an older man who introduced himself as Richard Something, a venture capitalist who immediately launched into a monologue about his latest investment. Emily nodded and smiled and had no idea what he was talking about. Across the table, Victoria held court, laughing too loud, touching the arm of every man near her, her eyes occasionally flicking to Ethan with something that looked like hunger. The speeches started. A hospital administrator thanking donors, a doctor sharing a story about a child they'd saved, a politician promising to increase healthcare funding. Emily watched Ethan during the speeches, saw him writing notes on his phone, probably ideas for his own charitable foundation. Then Victoria took the microphone. "I want to take a moment," she said, her voice carrying across the ballroom, "to talk about what real philanthropy looks like. It's not about writing a check and walking away. It's about sustained engagement, about understanding the communities you're serving, about having the humility to listen." Her eyes found Emily in the crowd. "And it's certainly not about using charity as a publicity stunt, not about bringing your latest project to events like this to score points or improve your image." The room went very still. Ethan's jaw clenched. "Because real generosity," Victoria continued, "comes from a place of genuine concern, not from trying to assuage guilt or paper over recent professional failures. We've all seen people try to rebuild their reputation through performative charity. It's transparent. It's insulting to the organizations doing real work." She wasn't naming names. She didn't have to. Emily felt every eye in the room shift toward their table, felt the weight of judgment, the whispers starting. "That's enough," Ethan said, standing up. The entire ballroom turned to look at him. I'm sorry, Victoria said, all false innocence. Did I say something wrong? You know exactly what you're doing. Ethan's voice was controlled but hard. And I'm not going to sit here and let you turn a charitable event into your personal revenge fantasy. Revenge? For what? For you choosing your work over our relationship? For you never having time for me because you were always chasing the next deal, the next success? Victoria's mask was slipping. Or maybe I'm just pointing out that you haven't changed, still bringing work to social events, still using people as props. Emily's not a prop, isn't she? A scholarship girl you plucked from obscurity, dressed up, brought to a gala to show how magnanimous you are. It's a nice story, Ethan. Very inspiring. But we all know how this ends. She'll realize she doesn't belong in your world, and you'll move on to the next project. Emily stood up. Her legs felt shaky, but she forced them steady. You don't know anything about me, Emily said. Her voice was quiet, but it carried in the silent room. Victoria raised an eyebrow. Don't I? No, you don't know where I came from or what I've survived. You don't know what it's like to work yourself exhausted and still not have enough. You don't know what it's like to choose between food and electricity. You've never had to fight for anything because it's all been handed to you. Emily, Ethan started, but she wasn't done. Weeks of feeling small, of feeling less than, of swallowing her pride and her fear came pouring out. You think I'm here because Ethan's using me? I'm here because I earned it, because I showed kindness when I had nothing, and because these people, she gestured at the wealthy crowd, recognize something you can't see. That value isn't about money, it's about character. How touching, Victoria said coldly. The scholarship girl gives a speech about character. At least I have character to defend. Emily's hands were shaking, but she kept going. You're standing at a charity gala, at an event meant to help sick children, using it as a platform to attack someone because your ego got bruised 5 years ago. That tells me everything I need to know about your character. The room erupted in whispers. Victoria's face went red. How dare you? Emily's right. Patricia Chen stood up from her table across the room. Victoria, sit down. You're embarrassing yourself in this family. Mother, sit down. Victoria sat, fury radiating from her. Patricia walked over to Emily and Ethan's table. I apologize for my daughter's behavior. Emily, what you said took courage. Don't let anyone make you feel ashamed of where you've come from or what you've accomplished. She turned to address the room. Emily Harper represents everything this event is supposed to be about. Helping people overcome circumstances beyond their control. Recognizing potential regardless of background. I'm proud to have been part of her journey, and I suspect we'll all be hearing her name for years to come. Scattered applause started, then grew. Not everyone joined in. Emily could see the skeptical faces, the ones who agreed with Victoria, but enough people clapped that it didn't feel like total failure. Ethan took Emily's hand. Let's get some air, he said quietly. They slipped out of the ballroom onto a terrace overlooking the city. The cool night air hit Emily's face, and suddenly she was shaking, adrenaline crashing through her system. I can't believe I just did that, she whispered. You were amazing, Ethan said. I yelled at a room full of millionaires. I told off your ex-girlfriend in public. I probably just destroyed any chance of fitting into this world. You defended yourself with dignity and truth. That's not something to apologize for. Emily leaned against the railing, looking out at Chicago's glittering lights. She's right, though, isn't she? About me not belonging, about this being temporary. Eventually, everyone's going to realize I'm just pretending. You're not pretending. Ethan moved to stand beside her. You're adapting, learning, growing. That's different. Is it? He was quiet for a moment. When my wife died, I threw myself into work because it was easier than feeling the grief. Built the company bigger, worked longer hours, told myself I was doing it for Sophie, but really I was running from the pain, and I lost myself. Became this thing that looked successful but felt hollow. Emily turned to look at him. That night in the diner, Ethan continued, when I had nothing left, when all the success and money and status was stripped away, you saw me. Just me. Not the CEO, not the billionaire, just a broken man who needed help. And you helped anyway. That's real, Emily. That matters more than knowing which fork to use or how to make small talk with venture capitalists. But Victoria's not wrong about people judging me, about me being a project. Some people will always judge. Some people like Victoria will always be cruel because their own unhappiness demands it. But that doesn't make them right. He turned to face her fully. You belong anywhere you choose to be. Your worth isn't determined by them. It's determined by you. Emily felt tears burning her eyes. I'm so tired of being scared. I know. His voice was soft. But scared means you're doing something that matters. Means you care about the outcome. That's not weakness. That's strength. They stood there for a long time, the sounds of the gala drifting out from the ballroom, the city spread below them like a promise or a threat. Finally, Ethan said, We don't have to go back in. We can leave right now if you want. Emily thought about it. About running away, hiding, letting Victoria win. About all the times in her life she'd made herself small to avoid conflict. No, she said. We stay. We finish the night. I'm done hiding. Ethan smiled, and in that moment Emily realized something that terrified her more than any gala or cruel socialite. She was starting to fall for him. Not because of his money or his power, but because of this. His kindness, his vulnerability, his belief that she was worth believing in. They walked back into the ballroom together, and if people stared, if Victoria glared, if whispers followed them, Emily held her head high and pretended she belonged until maybe, eventually, it would be true. The fallout from the gala hit the next morning like a freight train Emily never saw coming. She woke to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. Most were from numbers she didn't recognize. The ones that weren't were from Madison, from Jennifer at HR, from Patricia Chen. Even one from Mel at the diner that just said, Saw the news. You okay, kid? Emily sat up in bed, her dress from last night still hanging on the back of her door like evidence of a crime, and opened her phone with shaking hands. The first article was from the Chicago Tribune Society page. Scholarship student clashes with socialite at Children's Hospital Gala. The photo showed Emily mid-speech, her face fierce, Victoria looking shocked in the background. Emily looked angry and out of place, and exactly like someone who didn't belong. The second article was worse. A gossip blog. Cole's new charity case, waitress turned assistant makes scene at elite event. They dug up her employment history. Photos of Mel's diner. Speculation about her relationship with Ethan that made her stomach turn. By the third article, Emily stopped reading, stopped looking, just sat there holding her phone while the walls of her tiny apartment seemed to close in. Her phone rang. Ethan. She didn't want to answer, wanted to hide under her blankets and pretend the world didn't exist, but she'd told herself last night she was done hiding. Hello, she said, her voice rough. Have you seen it? Ethan asked. Yeah. I'm sorry, this is my fault. I should have anticipated Victoria would pull something, should have kept you away from… Ethan, Emily cut him off. I'm the one who stood up and gave a speech. I'm the one who couldn't just smile and take it. This isn't on you. The press is twisting everything, making you look like what I am? A waitress who got lucky? Emily laughed, but it came out bitter. They're not wrong. They're completely wrong. His voice was hard. Emily, listen to me. This will blow over. These people, they feed on drama for a few days and then move on to the next scandal. Just keep your head down, don't respond to any press, and I need to see you, Emily interrupted. Can you come over, or I can come there? I need to talk to someone who isn't going to judge me. There was a pause. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Text me your address. Emily looked around her apartment, 400 square feet of secondhand furniture and peeling paint, and the lingering smell of the Thai restaurant downstairs. The idea of Ethan Cole seeing how she actually lived made her want to die. But she texted him the address anyway. She barely had time to throw on real clothes and hide the worst of the mess before he knocked. When she opened the door, Ethan stood in the narrow hallway wearing jeans and a sweater, looking more human than she'd ever seen him at the office. Hi, he said. Hi. Emily stepped back to let him in, acutely aware of how small everything was, how the ceiling had a water stain in the corner, how her furniture looked like it had been rescued from curbs. Sorry about the place. It's not much. Ethan looked around, but not the way Victoria would have, with judgment and disdain. He looked around the way someone looks at a museum, trying to understand the history held in ordinary things. You live here alone? He asked. Yeah. Been here 3 years. Rent's cheap because the landlord doesn't fix anything, and the neighborhood's questionable, but it's mine. Emily gestured vaguely at the futon that served as both couch and bed. You can sit if you want. He sat. She perched on the edge of her desk chair, putting space between them because she didn't trust herself right now. The articles, Emily started. They're saying I'm using you, that I'm a gold digger who's playing some long con, that you're having a midlife crisis, and I'm the symptom. I know what they're saying. Are they right? Ethan looked at her sharply. What? About me using you. About this being, I don't know, inappropriate somehow. You're my boss. You're rich. I'm your employee. I'm poor. And everyone's going to think I'm sleeping with you for money or status or whatever. Are you sleeping with me? Ethan asked. No. Then what they think doesn't matter. Doesn't it? Emily stood up, started pacing the small space. Because right now my face is all over the internet. People I went to high school with are probably seeing these articles. People from the diner. Everyone. And they're all thinking the same thing. Emily Harper finally found her meal ticket. You're not, and maybe they're not entirely wrong, Emily's voice cracked. Because what am I doing, Ethan? I'm working for you. You're paying for my school. You're introducing me to powerful people. You're changing my entire life. How is that not using you? Because you didn't ask for any of it, Ethan said firmly. I offered. I insisted. You tried to refuse, remember? I'm the one who showed up at the diner with 50 people and a scholarship. You were happy to just keep serving coffee and surviving. Emily stopped pacing, looked at him sitting on her futon in her shabby apartment, this man who had everything and chose to be here. Why did you come? She asked quietly. Really, you could have called, could have sent a text telling me to ignore the press. Why drive all the way here? Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then he said, because I remember what it feels like to have the world think they know who you are based on where you came from. When I started my company, the press loved to point out I grew up in a trailer park, like that was supposed to define my worth, like I couldn't possibly understand business or innovation or leadership because my mom cleaned houses. He stood up, moved closer to her, not invading her space but closing the distance. And I remember how alone I felt during that time. How everyone had opinions about me, but no one actually saw me. I didn't want you to feel that way. Emily's throat was tight. I don't know how to do this. How to be the person everyone's watching, judging. I'm not built for this kind of attention. Nobody is. But you're stronger than you think. Ethan reached out, hesitated, then gently touched her shoulder. The Emily who stood up to Victoria last night, who defended herself with honesty and dignity. That's who you really are. The press can't change that. But they can make everyone else see me differently. Let them. The people who matter will see the truth. Emily wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that this would blow over, that she could survive the scrutiny, that her worth wasn't determined by headlines and gossip blogs. But when Ethan left 20 minutes later, he had to pick up Sophie from a playdate. Emily sat alone in her apartment and felt the weight of it all crushing down. She'd spent 30 years being invisible, and now suddenly everyone was looking. And what they saw wasn't determination or strength or potential. They saw a poor girl who got lucky, who didn't belong, who was playing dress-up in a world that would never truly accept her. Her phone buzzed. Madison. Study group tomorrow? We can talk about the gala drama if you want, or not talk about it. Your call. Emily stared at the text. Part of her wanted to hide, wanted to skip class and work, and every social obligation until the world forgot she existed. But she'd told Ethan she was done hiding, told herself the same thing. She texted back, I'll be there. Then she opened her laptop and started researching how to handle bad press, how to protect your reputation, how to survive when the internet decided you were the villain. Monday morning at Cole Technologies felt different. People stared, whispered when Emily walked past. The receptionist gave her a sympathetic smile that felt like pity. Even the elevator ride up to 47 felt longer, heavier, like the building itself was judging her. Jennifer from HR was waiting at Emily's desk. We need to talk, Jennifer said, and Emily's heart dropped. They went into a conference room. Jennifer closed the door, and Emily prepared herself for the worst. Getting fired, getting told she was a liability, getting sent back to the diner where she belonged. The press coverage from this weekend has created some concerns, Jennifer started. I understand, Emily said quietly. If you need me to resign, what? No! Jennifer looked startled. Emily, you're not being fired, but we need to discuss how to handle this situation professionally. The company's getting calls from reporters asking about your relationship with Ethan, about how you were hired, whether there's favoritism or impropriety. There's not, Emily said firmly. There's nothing inappropriate happening. I believe you. Ethan's been very clear about that. But perception matters, especially right now when the company's still recovering from the takeover attempt. We can't afford another scandal. Emily felt sick. What do you need me to do? For now, just keep doing your job. Don't speak to any press. Route all media inquiries through our communications department. And, Jennifer paused, looking uncomfortable. Try to maintain clear professional boundaries with Ethan. I know he sees you as a friend, but optics matter, especially given the power dynamic. The power dynamic, right. Because Ethan was a billionaire CEO and Emily was a former waitress he'd pulled out of poverty. Of course there was a power dynamic. Of course people would assume the worst. I understand, Emily said. After Jennifer left, Emily sat at her desk and tried to focus on work. Tried to answer emails and manage Ethan's calendar and act like everything was normal, but nothing felt normal anymore. Ethan emerged from a meeting around 11. He stopped at Emily's desk and she saw other employees watching from their cubicles. Everything okay? He asked quietly. Fine. Just answering emails. Emily kept her voice professional, her eyes on her computer screen instead of his face. Emily, you have a call with the board at 2. I sent the briefing materials to your tablet. Still professional, still distant. She felt him hesitate, felt the question he wanted to ask, but he just said, thank you, and went back into his office. Clear professional boundaries. That's what Jennifer had said. That's what Emily would maintain, even if it felt like cutting off her own arm. At Northwestern that evening, the study group was awkward in ways it had never been before. Everyone had clearly seen the articles. Madison tried to act normal, but even she seemed uncertain about what to say. So, David ventured after 20 minutes of uncomfortable silence while they pretended to study. The gala looked fancy. It was, Emily said shortly. That Victoria Chen sounds like a piece of work, Priya added. My mom knows her family. Apparently she's been bitter about Ethan Cole for years. Emily didn't respond. Didn't want to talk about it. Didn't want their opinions or their sympathy or their curiosity. Madison cleared her throat. Should we get back to the chapter on organizational behavior? The quiz is Thursday. They tried. But the elephant in the room was too big to ignore, and after another 30 minutes of painful small talk disguised as studying, Emily packed up her stuff. I should go. Early morning tomorrow. Emily, wait. Madison followed her into the hallway. I'm sorry. We're all being weird and making it worse. It's fine. It's not. And I want you to know that article was bullshit. The one calling you a gold digger. Anyone who's been in our study group can see you're not using anyone. You work harder than any of us. You actually care about learning this stuff instead of just getting the degree. Emily's eyes stung. Thanks. And for what it's worth, I think what you said to Victoria was brave. Rich people need to be called out on their crap more often. Yeah, well, being brave doesn't feel great when the whole internet hates you. Madison shrugged. The internet hates everyone eventually. At least you earned it by standing up for yourself instead of posting a bad tweet. Despite everything, Emily smiled. Over the next 2 weeks, things got worse before they got better. More articles appeared, each one digging deeper into Emily's past. They found her mother's obituary, used it to paint a picture of tragic poverty. Found people who'd worked with Emily at previous jobs, quoted them saying she'd always been quiet, kept to herself, seemed like she was hiding something. They found photos of Emily from high school, awkward, overweight, bad haircut, and posted them next to current photos with captions about transformations and makeovers. Implied Ethan had made her over Pretty Woman style, like she was a project instead of a person. The worst was an interview with someone claiming to be Emily's ex-boyfriend from community college. Emily didn't remember dating anyone seriously, but apparently this guy, Jake something, had taken her out twice 7 years ago and now had opinions about her character. She was always ambitious, Jake told the reporter, always talking about wanting more, wanting to get out. Guess she found her ticket. Emily read that one late at night in her apartment and cried for the first time since everything started. Not because Jake was right, she barely remembered him, but because the world was so determined to make her the villain that they'd twist anything to fit the narrative. Her phone rang. Ethan, for the third time that day. She'd been avoiding his calls, maintaining those professional boundaries, but tonight she was too tired to pretend she was fine. "Hello?" she answered. "Where are you?" Ethan asked. "Home. I'm coming over." "Ethan, you can't just—" "I'm already in my car. Be there in 15 minutes. He hung up before she could argue. Emily looked around her apartment, looked at the laptop open to that awful interview, at the pile of textbooks she couldn't focus on, at the Northwestern acceptance letter she'd framed and hung on the wall because she'd been so proud, and now it just felt like evidence of her presumption. When Ethan knocked, she almost didn't answer. But he knocked again, more insistent, and finally she opened the door. He looked angry. Not at her, at the world. "Have you eaten today?" he asked, pushing past her into the apartment. Maybe breakfast?" "It's 8 p.m., Emily." He was carrying bags from some restaurant she didn't recognize. Started unpacking containers on her tiny counter. "You need to eat." "I'm not hungry." "I don't care. Sit down." Something about this command in his voice, the way he was taking charge because she couldn't, made Emily's defenses crumble. She sat at her desk chair while Ethan arranged food, Thai curry, rice, some kind of appetizer she couldn't identify. "Eat," he said, handing her a fork. She took a bite mechanically. It tasted like nothing, like cardboard and obligation. Ethan sat on the futon, watching her. "You've been avoiding me." "I've been maintaining professional boundaries, like HR suggested." "Screw HR." The vehemence in his voice surprised her. "Emily, you're allowed to have friends. You're allowed to need support. This professional distance thing, it's killing you." "It's protecting you," Emily corrected. "Every time we're seen together, every time someone thinks we're too close, it makes the rumors worse. Makes people think I'm using you, or you're taking advantage of me, or whatever narrative they've decided is true." "I don't care what they think." "Well, I do." Emily set down the fork. "Because you're Ethan Cole. You're a billionaire, you run a huge company, you have lawyers and PR people and a reputation that can survive this. But me? I'm nobody. I'm a waitress who got a scholarship, and if this goes bad, if people decide I'm a liar or a manipulator or whatever, I have nothing to fall back on. No safety net. No other options." "You think I'd let you fall?" "I think you can't catch me forever." Emily's voice broke. "Eventually you'll realize this is too much trouble, that I'm too much trouble. And then what? I'll have burned all my bridges, pissed off powerful people like Victoria, made myself unemployable in this city. I'll end up right back where I started, except worse because now everyone knows my face and thinks I'm a con artist." Ethan stood up, moved to kneel in front of her chair so they were eye level. "Emily, look at me." She didn't want to, couldn't handle the intensity of his gaze when she felt this fragile, but she looked anyway. "I'm not going anywhere," Ethan said quietly. "And I'm not going to let you destroy yourself trying to protect me from gossip I don't care about. Yes, this is hard. Yes, the press is being vicious. But you're not alone in this. You've never been alone in this." "I feel alone," Emily whispered. "I know, but you're not." He took her hands, and his palms were warm against her cold fingers. "We're going to get through this, together. And when we do, everyone who doubted you is going to look like an idiot." "You sound very sure." "I am sure. Because I've seen who you are, Emily. Not the version the press invented, but the real you. The woman who fed a stranger with her last $10. The woman who stood up to Victoria Chen in front of Chicago's elite. The woman who goes to class and works 20-hour weeks and still somehow finds time to help Sophie with her homework when I'm drowning in meetings." Emily blinked. "Sophie talks about me?" "Constantly. Asks when you're coming over again. Wants to show you her new drawings. She likes you." Ethan paused. "We both do." The air between them shifted, became charged with something Emily didn't have the courage to name. "Ethan?" His phone rang. He ignored it. It rang again. He pulled it out with visible irritation, checked the screen, and his expression changed. "It's my lawyer. I need to take this." He stood up, answered. "Morrison, what's going on?" Emily watched his face shift from annoyance to concern to something harder. "When?" Ethan asked. A pause. No, I understand. Tomorrow morning, I'll be there. He hung up and looked at Emily with an expression she couldn't read. What happened? She asked. Victoria's family is threatening to pull their funding from the Children's Hospital charity unless I issue a public apology for your behavior at the gala. Emily felt like she'd been punched. What? The Chen Foundation is one of their biggest donors. Apparently, Victoria convinced her mother and the board that you were disrespectful, that I brought someone inappropriate to a formal event, and that both of us embarrassed the family publicly. But Patricia supported me. She stood up for me. Patricia's not the whole foundation. She's one board member. Victoria's on the board too, and she's got her allies. Ethan ran his hand through his hair. They're demanding I distance myself from you professionally, fire you, and issue a statement saying you acted inappropriately. The room tilted. You're going to do it, aren't you? What? No. Ethan, it's a children's hospital. Sick kids need that money. You can't let them lose funding because of me. I'm not apologizing for something you didn't do wrong, and I'm sure as hell not firing you. Then what are you going to do? Ethan's jaw set in that way that meant he'd made a decision and nothing would change his mind. I'm going to call their bluff. Victoria wants a fight, she'll get one, but it won't be on her terms. That's a terrible idea. Probably. But I'm done playing nice with people who think money gives them the right to destroy someone for sport. He looked at Emily. Unless you want me to back down. If you'd rather I apologize and make this go away quietly, I will. It's your reputation too. Emily thought about it, about apologizing for defending herself, about letting Victoria win, about spending the rest of her life wondering if she could have been brave enough to fight back. No, she said. Don't apologize. Don't back down. Ethan smiled, fierce and proud. That's my girl. The words sent heat through Emily's chest. My girl, like she was his, like he was claiming her in front of the world. What's your plan? Emily asked. I'm going to make a donation to the Children's Hospital that's twice what the Chen Foundation gives annually. And I'm going to attach a press release explaining exactly why. That I support institutions that value character over social connections. That I won't be bullied by people who use charity as leverage. That's going to make things worse, Emily said. Short term, yeah. Long term, it shifts the narrative. Right now, you're the villain and Victoria's the victim. We flip that. Make it about her using sick kids as pawns in a personal vendetta. You've thought about this. I've thought about nothing else since the gala. Ethan checked his watch. I need to go. Meeting with my lawyers first thing tomorrow to draw up the donation paperwork. But Emily, I need you to promise me something. What? Stop isolating yourself. Stop trying to handle this alone. You've got people who care about you. Me, Sophie, Patricia, even your study group friends. Let us help. Emily nodded, not trusting her voice. After Ethan left, she sat with the Thai food he'd brought and actually ate. Tasted it this time. The curry was good, warming, the kind of comfort she'd needed without knowing it. Her phone buzzed. A text from Sophie's number, but clearly Ethan had written it. Sophie wants to know if you can come over for dinner Thursday. She's making you a welcome card. Well, she's making it. I'm supervising. Say yes. Despite everything, the press, the scandal, the threats from Victoria's family, Emily smiled. She texted back, Tell Sophie I'd love to come. The news broke Wednesday morning. Ethan's donation and accompanying statement hit every major outlet by 9 a.m. The headlines were immediate. Tech CEO donates $5 million to Children's Hospital after charity pulls support over personal dispute. Ethan's statement was surgical in its precision. He praised the hospital's work, expressed disappointment that certain donors had tried to use funding as a weapon in personal conflicts, and affirmed his commitment to supporting institutions that valued character and integrity over social politics. He never mentioned Victoria by name. Didn't have to. Everyone knew. The internet exploded. Half the people praised Ethan for standing up to bullying. The other half accused him of using his wealth to silence criticism. But the narrative had shifted. Now Victoria was being questioned too. Why had she used charity funding as leverage? What kind of person punished sick children over a personal grudge? Emily watched it unfold from her desk at Cole Technologies, her stomach in knots. Jennifer stopped by mid-morning. Well, Jennifer said dryly, Ethan certainly doesn't do anything halfway. Is the company okay with this? Emily asked. The donation? The statement? The board had an emergency call this morning. Most of them support it. A few think Ethan's letting personal feelings cloud his judgment. Jennifer paused. They're probably not wrong, but sometimes being right matters more than being strategic. I should resign, Emily said quietly. This is all because of me. If I just stepped away, if you stepped away, Victoria wins, and we'd lose a good employee. Jennifer sat on the edge of Emily's desk. I know this is hard. I know you feel responsible, but running away doesn't fix anything. It just teaches people that if they harass you enough, you'll disappear. When did you get so wise? Years of dealing with corporate drama. Trust me, I've seen worse than a bitter ex making trouble at a gala. Thursday evening, Emily took the train to Ethan's building for the first time. The doorman had her name on a list, directed her to the private elevator that went straight to the penthouse. She'd expected luxury, but the reality still took her breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Modern furniture that looked like art. A kitchen bigger than Emily's entire apartment. Everything clean and expensive and carefully curated. But there were also signs of Sophie everywhere. Drawings stuck to the fridge with magnets, a pile of picture books on the coffee table, a pink backpack abandoned near the door, proof that someone small and chaotic lived here too. Emily! Sophie came running, launching herself at Emily's legs for a hug. You came. Daddy said you would. But I wasn't sure because you're very busy and important now. Emily knelt down to Sophie's level. I'm not that important, and I always have time for you. I made you something. Sophie grabbed Emily's hand and dragged her to the dining table where art supplies were spread everywhere. Look! It was a card. Construction paper covered in glitter and stickers and a drawing of 3 stick figures. One tall figure labeled Daddy, one smaller figure labeled Me, and one medium figure with yellow hair labeled Emily. We're a family, Sophie announced. Daddy said you're important to us, so I put you in the family picture. Is that okay? Emily's throat closed up. She looked at Ethan, who stood in the kitchen doorway looking slightly panicked. Sophie, we talked about this, Ethan said gently. Emily's our friend, but friends can be family too, right? Sophie looked between them with 6-year-old logic that cut through all the complicated adult stuff. You said family is people who care about each other. Emily cares about us. We care about her. So she's family. Sophie, Ethan tried again. I love it, Emily interrupted, her voice thick. Thank you, Sophie. It's beautiful. Sophie beamed. You can put it in your apartment so you remember we love you. The casual way she said it, we love you, like it was obvious, like it was simple, made Emily want to cry and laugh at the same time. Dinner was surprisingly normal. They ordered pizza because Sophie insisted Emily needed to try their favorite place. They sat around the dining table while Sophie chattered about school and her friends, and a boy named Marcus who kept pulling her hair. That means he likes you, Ethan said. Gross. I don't like boys who pull hair. Emily, do you like boys who pull hair? Definitely not, Emily agreed. After dinner, Sophie demanded they play a board game. Then, another. By the time Ethan finally convinced her it was bedtime, it was past 9. Can Emily read me a story? Sophie asked. Emily might need to get home, Ethan said. I can stay a bit longer, Emily offered. Sophie's room was exactly what Emily would have expected. Pink walls, shelves full of books and stuffed animals, a bed with a princess comforter. But there were also photos everywhere. Sophie with Ethan, Sophie with an older woman who must have been the nanny, and several photos of a beautiful woman with dark hair and Sophie's smile. Her mother. Sophie caught Emily looking. That's Mommy. She died when I was 3. I don't remember her much, but Daddy talks about her sometimes. She was beautiful, Emily said softly. Daddy says I look like her, but I act like him. Sophie climbed into bed. Will you read me the one about the princess who rescues herself? Emily read the story while Sophie curled up with Mr. Trunk, her eyes getting heavier with each page. By the end, she was asleep, breathing soft and even. Emily stood to leave, but Sophie's hand caught hers. Stay, she mumbled, half asleep. Just for a minute. So Emily stayed, sitting on the edge of the bed, holding a 6-year-old's hand while she slept. And something in Emily's chest cracked open. This little girl who'd lost her mother, who'd almost lost her father, who was so hungry for love that she'd claimed Emily as family after a few dinners. She deserved every good thing. When Emily finally slipped out of Sophie's room, Ethan was waiting in the hallway. "She's asleep," Emily whispered. "Thank you. For staying, for reading to her. She doesn't warm up to people easily, but she loves you." They walked to the living room. The city glittered below them through those massive windows, Chicago at night looking like a promise. "Your home is beautiful," Emily said. "It's too big for two people. Too quiet sometimes." Ethan poured 2 glasses of wine, handed one to Emily. "After my wife died, I bought this place thinking a fresh start would help. New apartment, new everything. But you can't escape grief by changing your address." "How did you get through it? Losing her?" "Barely. Sophie kept me going. I had to get up, had to function, had to be there for her. But inside I was drowning, threw myself into work because work was something I could control. And I told myself I was fine, convinced myself I'd processed it, moved on." "But you hadn't." "No, just buried it deeper. Until that night I lost the company and everything came crashing down at once. The grief I'd never dealt with, the fear I'd been running from, all of it." He looked at her. "And then you fed me dinner and reminded me there was still kindness in the world, still reasons to keep fighting." Emily set down her wine glass. "Ethan, I need to tell you something." "Okay." "I'm scared. Not of the press or Victoria or any of that. I'm scared of this." She gestured between them. "Of what's happening between us. Because the power dynamic is real, and the feelings are real, and I don't know how to navigate it without destroying everything." "What feelings?" Ethan asked quietly. Emily's heart was pounding. "You know what feelings. Don't make me say it." He moved closer. "I need you to say it." "I'm falling for you," Emily whispered. "Have been for weeks, maybe since that first night in the diner. And I know that's complicated and probably inappropriate and definitely a bad idea given everything else, but I can't pretend anymore. I can't maintain professional boundaries when every time I'm near you, I want—" Ethan kissed her. It wasn't soft or tentative. It was desperate and certain and full of everything they'd both been holding back. His hands in her hair, her fingers clutching his shirt, 2 people who'd been drowning finally coming up for air. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Ethan rested his forehead against hers. "I've wanted to do that for so long," he said. "How long?" "Since you defended yourself at the gala. Maybe before. Maybe since you lied about that Tuesday special and fed a stranger who couldn't pay." He pulled back to look at her. "Emily, I know this is complicated. I know I'm your boss and there's a power imbalance and 100 reasons this could go wrong. But I'm tired of pretending I don't care about you. Tired of maintaining distance when all I want is to pull you closer." "What about Sophie?" Emily asked. "What about the press and Victoria and everyone who's going to say I manipulated you or you're taking advantage of me?" "Sophie already loves you. The press will say whatever they want regardless, and Victoria can go to hell." Ethan tucked a strand of hair behind Emily's ear. "But if you're not ready, if you need time, I'll wait. I'll be patient. I just need to know this isn't one-sided." "It's not one-sided," Emily said. "It's terrifying and probably a mistake and definitely going to make everything harder. But it's not one-sided." He kissed her again, slower this time, thorough, like he was memorizing the shape of her mouth, the taste of her, the way she fit against him. Emily's phone buzzed. She ignored it. It buzzed again and again. Finally, reluctantly, she checked it. 17 messages. All from Jennifer. All marked urgent. "What is it?" Ethan asked, seeing her expression change. Emily opened the messages, her stomach dropping with each one. "It's the press," she said numbly. "Someone leaked photos of me entering your building tonight. They're saying we're having an affair. That you promoted me because we're sleeping together. That the scholarship, the job, all of it was payment for—" She couldn't finish. Ethan grabbed his own phone. His expression went dark as he scrolled through the headlines, the photos, the speculation. "They're destroying me," Emily whispered. "Us. Everything." "No." Ethan's voice was hard. "They're trying to, but we won't let them. How do we stop this?" He looked at her, and Emily saw the moment he made a decision. "We tell the truth. All of it. No more hiding, no more professional boundaries, no more pretending. We go public with our relationship, we explain how we met, and we dare anyone to find something wrong with two people caring about each other. That's career suicide. Maybe. Or maybe it's the only way forward that doesn't involve lying about who we are and what we want. Emily thought about it, about spending months or years sneaking around, hiding how they felt, watching every interaction to make sure no one suspected, about the alternative, standing in the light, facing judgment, but at least being honest. Okay, she said, let's do it. Let's tell the truth. Ethan pulled her close, kissed the top of her head. Together? Together, Emily confirmed. And somewhere in the city below, she knew the press was sharpening their knives. Victoria was planning her next move, and 100 other battles were waiting. But for this moment, wrapped in Ethan's arms in his too-big apartment with his daughter sleeping down the hall, and the truth finally spoken aloud, Emily felt something she hadn't felt in weeks. She felt brave. The press conference was scheduled for 10 a.m. Friday. Ethan's PR team spent Thursday night trying to talk him out of it. This is a mistake, his communications director said for the 5th time. You don't owe anyone an explanation about your personal life. Let the rumors die down naturally. They won't die down, Ethan countered. They'll just get worse, more invasive, more damaging to Emily. Then let me issue a statement, something vague about respecting privacy, focusing on the work. We don't need a full press conference. But Ethan was immovable. We do this my way, or I do it alone without the company's support. Your choice. They'd relented, but Emily could see the worry on their faces as they prepped her. What to wear? Professional, but approachable. What to say? Honest, but concise. What not to do? Don't cry. Don't get defensive. Don't let them see you break. Emily stood in the bathroom of Cole Technologies at 9:30, staring at herself in the mirror. The navy dress Patricia had insisted she buy hung perfectly. Her hair was styled, her makeup subtle but polished. She looked like someone who belonged at a press conference. She felt like throwing up. You don't have to do this, Madison said from behind her. She'd shown up that morning uninvited, claiming she wanted moral support but probably just curious about the drama. You could still back out. Let Ethan handle it alone. And look like a coward who's hiding. Or look like someone smart enough not to feed the circus. Madison leaned against the sink. Emily, these people are going to tear you apart. They're going to ask invasive questions about your relationship, your past, your intentions. Are you really ready for that? Emily turned to face her. No, but I'm doing it anyway. Why? What's the point? You and Ethan know the truth. The people who matter know the truth. Why do you care what the press thinks? Because it's not just about me anymore. Emily's voice was quiet but firm. It's about every person who's ever been dismissed because they came from nothing. Every woman who's been accused of sleeping her way to the top. Every relationship that gets questioned because there's a power imbalance. I'm tired of letting other people define my story. Madison studied her for a long moment. You really love him, don't you? Is it that obvious? Only to anyone with eyes. Madison smiled slightly. For what it's worth, I think you're braver than I'd be, and I hope it works out. At 9:45, Jennifer came to get her. They're ready for you. The conference room was packed with reporters, cameras, recording equipment. Every major news outlet in Chicago had sent someone. Some national outlets, too. Emily spotted a reporter from CNN, another from the New York Times. Ethan was already seated at the table in front, looking calm and composed in a charcoal suit. When Emily entered, every camera swung toward her. Flashes went off, microphones were thrust forward. She took the seat next to Ethan, her hands shaking in her lap where the cameras couldn't see. He reached over under the table, squeezed her hand once, then let go before anyone could notice. His communications director stood at the podium. Thank you all for coming, Mr. Cole has a brief statement, then we'll take a few questions. Ethan stood up, and the room went silent. 3 months ago, he began, his voice steady and clear, I had the worst night of my life. I'd lost my company in a hostile takeover, lost control of the work I'd spent a decade building, and I stood on my balcony 43 floors up and seriously considered whether it was worth continuing. The reporters leaned forward. This wasn't the sanitized corporate statement they'd expected. I didn't jump, obviously. Instead, I went for a walk. Ended up at a diner in the rain with $2 in my pocket and no hope left. and a waitress named Emily Harper made me dinner, paid for it out of her own pocket. Pretended it was a special so I wouldn't feel like charity. He looked at Emily, and she saw the emotion he was barely keeping contained. That kindness saved my life. Literally. It reminded me that there were still good people in the world, still reasons to fight. So I reclaimed my company, and I came back to that diner the next morning with a group of business leaders to offer Emily the opportunities she deserved. Not because I wanted something from her, not because I was attracted to her. At that point, I barely knew her, but because genuine kindness is rare and valuable and worth supporting. Ethan paused, taking a breath. Over the following weeks, as Emily started school and began working as my assistant, I got to know her, her work ethic, her integrity, her compassion. And yes, eventually, my respect turned into something more. We started a relationship, a real one, based on mutual care and understanding. A reporter raised her hand. "Mr. Cole, are you saying this isn't a case of a boss taking advantage of an employee?" "I'm saying that Emily is a grown woman fully capable of making her own choices. She's not a victim. She's not being exploited. She's someone I care about deeply and who cares about me. The power dynamic you're worried about? We're both aware of it. We've discussed it. We've taken steps to ensure professionalism at work while also acknowledging that our personal feelings exist." "But you're a billionaire and she was a waitress," another reporter called out. "How is that not inherently exploitative?" Emily felt Ethan tense beside her, felt him about to defend her again. But she'd said she was tired of letting others define her story. She stood up. "I'd like to address that," Emily said, her voice surprisingly steady. The room's attention shifted to her entirely. Every camera, every recorder, every skeptical gaze. "You're right," Emily said. "Ethan is a billionaire. I was a waitress making minimum wage plus tips. There's a massive power imbalance in terms of wealth and status and opportunity. But here's what you're missing. I'm not powerless." She saw a few reporters exchange glances. "I chose to help Ethan that night in the diner. I chose to accept his scholarship offer. I chose to work hard at school and at my job. And I chose to enter a relationship with him, fully aware of the complications and the judgment that would come with it. Those were my choices. Mine, not his." "But don't you see how people might question your motives?" a male reporter asked. "A poor woman dating a rich man who's also her boss?" "Of course I see it. I've spent weeks reading articles calling me a gold digger, a manipulator, a charity case. But here's the thing. I don't need to prove my worth to strangers. I know who I am. I know what my intentions are. And the people who actually matter in my life know too." Emily's hands were still shaking, but her voice grew stronger. "You want to talk about power? Let's talk about the power of rich people like Victoria Chen using charity funding as a weapon to punish someone for having an opinion. Let's talk about the power of the press to destroy someone's reputation based on speculation and bias. Let's talk about the power of a system that assumes any poor person who improves their situation must have cheated or manipulated their way there." The room was absolutely silent now. "I'm not asking you to believe me," Emily continued. "I'm not asking for your approval. I'm just asking you to consider that maybe, just maybe, two people from different backgrounds can genuinely care about each other without ulterior motives. That kindness can exist without strings attached, that love doesn't always follow a formula you find acceptable." She sat down, her heart pounding so hard she thought everyone must be able to hear it. The questions came fast after that. Questions about their relationship timeline, about whether Emily had received special treatment at work, about Sophie and whether it was appropriate for Emily to be around Ethan's daughter. That last one made Ethan's expression go cold. "My daughter is none of your business," he said flatly. "But since you asked, yes, Sophie knows Emily. Sophie loves Emily. And that's because Emily is a genuinely good person who treats my daughter with kindness and patience and care, the same way she treats everyone. But isn't it confusing for a child who lost her mother to have another woman suddenly in her life?" a reporter pressed. "What's confusing for a child is adults who think their judgment matters more than a kid's emotional well-being," Ethan shot back. "Sophie is happy, healthy, loved. That's what matters, not what any of you think about the adults in her life." The communications director stepped in. "We have time for 2 more questions. Ms. Harper, do you plan to continue working for Mr. Cole now that you're in a relationship?" Emily glanced at Ethan, then back at the reporter. "Yes, I'm good at my job. I earned my position through competence, not favoritism. And I'm not going to let gossip force me out of a career I'm building. Mr. Cole, what do you say to people who think you're using your wealth to buy your way out of consequences? Ethan leaned forward. I'd say you're confusing standing up for someone I care about with buying my way out of anything. I'm not hiding from consequences. I'm here, publicly acknowledging my relationship, knowing it'll be scrutinized and judged. That's the opposite of running away. That's facing it head on. The communications director called an end to the questions despite the shouted follow-ups. Ethan stood, helped Emily up, and they walked out together while cameras flashed and reporters yelled for just one more comment. In the hallway, away from the press, Emily's knees nearly buckled. Ethan caught her elbow, steadied her. "You were amazing," he said. "I was terrified." Terrified and amazing aren't mutually exclusive. He wanted to pull her into his arms. She could see it in his eyes. But they were still at the office, still being watched by employees pretending not to stare. Jennifer appeared, looking stressed. The phones are ringing off the hook, half supportive, half calling for Ethan's resignation. The board wants an emergency meeting this afternoon. Of course they do, Ethan muttered. Ethan, I need to say something. Jennifer looked between them. That was either the bravest or stupidest thing I've ever seen an executive do. Possibly both. But for what it's worth, I believe you, both of you. And I hope it works out. Thank you, Emily said quietly. After Jennifer left, Ethan turned to Emily. The board meeting will be ugly. They're going to pressure me to end this. To choose between you and the company. Then choose the company, Emily said immediately. Ethan, you can't lose everything you've built because of me. I'm not losing you. His voice was firm. I've already lost one person I loved. I'm not doing it again by choice. But no, Emily, I mean it. The company matters, but it's not everything. You are... He stopped, searching for words. You're the first person since my wife died who makes me want something beyond just work and survival. You make me want to actually live, to build something real and meaningful. I'm not giving that up. Emily's eyes burned with tears she refused to let fall in the office hallway. Go home, Ethan said gently. Take the rest of the day. Rest. I'll call you after the board meeting. I want to stay, support you. The best support you can give me right now is taking care of yourself. Please. Reluctantly, Emily gathered her things and left. She took the train home, ignoring the stares from people who might have seen the press conference, who might recognize her face from the news. Her apartment felt smaller than ever when she got back. Quieter. She sat on her futon and pulled out her phone, scrolling through the responses to the press conference. The reactions were exactly as divided as she'd expected. Half the internet praised her for standing up to reporters, called her brave, said she and Ethan were relationship goals. The other half called her a liar, a manipulator, said she was clearly using Ethan and the press conference was just damage control. Victoria had posted a statement on social media. Interesting to watch people defend inappropriate workplace relationships when it suits their narrative. If the genders were reversed, everyone would call this what it is, an abuse of power. Emily closed her phone before she could read more. Opened her laptop instead. She had assignments due for school, reading to catch up on. Normal life trying to continue despite the chaos. But she couldn't focus. Kept thinking about Ethan in that board meeting, fighting for their relationship, potentially losing his company. Again. Because of her. Her phone rang. Patricia Chen, Emily answered cautiously. Hello? Emily, dear, I saw the press conference. You were magnificent. Thank you. I'm sorry about the situation with your daughter. Don't apologize for Victoria's behavior. She's a grown woman making her own terrible choices. Patricia sighed. I wanted you to know that I've spoken with the other Chen Foundation board members. We're overriding Victoria's demands. The Children's Hospital will keep its funding regardless of what happens with you and Ethan. Relief washed through Emily. Really? Really? What my daughter did was inappropriate and vindictive. Using sick children as leverage in a personal vendetta? Unacceptable. She's been temporarily removed from her board position pending a vote. She's going to hate me even more now. Probably. But that's not your problem to fix. Focus on your own life, Emily. You and Ethan. Don't let bitter people poison something good. After they hung up, Emily felt marginally better. At least the hospital was safe. At least Victoria's attempt to weaponize charity had backfired. Her phone rang again. Ethan, this time. "How'd it go?" Emily asked immediately. "Mixed. 3 board members want me to step down as CEO. 5 support me. 4 are undecided. We're voting next week." Emily's stomach dropped. "This is my fault." "It's not. This is about old tensions from the takeover attempt, about people who never fully trusted me, about corporate politics that have nothing to do with you. You're just the excuse they're using. What happens if you lose the vote? I step down as CEO but retain my shares. They can't force me out of the company I built, but they can remove me from day-to-day operations." His voice was calm, too calm. "But we're not thinking about that yet. We have a week. A lot can change in a week." "Ethan, I need to go." Another call coming in. "But Emily, don't spiral. We'll figure this out." After he hung up, Emily sat in the silence of her apartment and tried not to spiral. Failed completely. Because in 1 week, Ethan might lose his company again. And this time it would be entirely because he'd defended her. Because he'd refused to hide their relationship. Because he'd chosen her over the safe, easy path. That night, Emily couldn't sleep. Kept replaying the press conference, the board meeting she hadn't witnessed, the vote that was coming. Kept imagining worst-case scenarios. Around midnight, someone knocked on her door. Emily checked the peephole, heart racing. Ethan stood in the hallway, looking exhausted, still in his suit from the board meeting, tie loosened. She opened the door. "What are you doing here?" "Couldn't sleep, kept thinking about you alone, worrying." He stepped inside. "Sophie's with the nanny for the night. I just needed to see you." Emily closed the door behind him. They stood in her tiny apartment, the space feeling even smaller with his presence filling it. "I'm scared," Emily admitted. "Not for me. For you. You could lose everything because of me." "I told you this isn't." "It is, though. Even if the board had other reasons, I'm the catalyst. I'm the excuse. And I keep thinking about that night in the diner, about how helping you changed both our lives. And I wonder if maybe I should have just let you order coffee and toast. Let you walk back out into the rain. Maybe none of this would be happening if I just minded my own business." Ethan crossed the room in 2 strides, cupped her face in his hands. "Don't say that. Don't ever say that." "But it's true." "No, it's not." His eyes were intense, almost desperate. "Emily, that night you didn't just feed me dinner. You reminded me what it means to be human. To care about someone beyond what they can do for you. To give without expecting anything back. I'd lost that. Spent so long in boardrooms and corporate battles that I'd forgotten kindness existed. That doesn't mean you should lose your company over it. Maybe losing the company is exactly what I need." The words seemed to surprise him as much as her. He dropped his hands from her face, ran them through his hair instead. "I built Cold Technologies because I wanted to prove I wasn't that trailer park kid anymore. Wanted to show the world I mattered. And somewhere along the way, the company became my entire identity. When I lost it the first time, I thought I'd lost myself." He looked at Emily directly. "But these past months with you, I've realized I'm more than the company. More than the money or the status or the success. I'm a father, a friend, someone capable of caring about things that don't show up on a balance sheet. Maybe if the board forces me out, it's the universe telling me to focus on what actually matters." "You don't mean that. You love that company." "I love you more." The words hung in the air between them, huge and terrifying and true. Emily's breath caught. "Ethan, I love you," he repeated, steadier this time. "I'm in love with you. Have been for weeks, maybe longer, and I know it's fast, I know it's complicated, but it's real. You're real, and I'm tired of pretending I don't feel it." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "You can't love me. You barely know me. I know you gave a stranger your last $10. I know you work harder than anyone I've ever met. I know you read to my daughter with the same gentle patience my wife used to. I know you're scared of not being enough, but you're actually more than enough for anyone lucky enough to have you in their life." He moved closer. "I know that when I'm with you, I feel like the best version of myself. Not the billionaire CEO version, just me. The guy from Indiana who wanted to build something meaningful." "I love you too." Emily whispered. I'm terrified. And I think this is a disaster waiting to happen, and I have no idea how we navigate all the complications, but I love you. This time when he kissed her, there was no interruption. No phone calls, no emergencies, just them in her tiny apartment choosing each other despite every reason not to. They spent the night talking about his wife and how grief never really goes away. You just learn to carry it. About Emily's mother and the guilt of surviving when someone you love doesn't. About Sophie and what it would mean to become part of her life in a real way. About the board vote and what they'd do if Ethan lost his position. I've been thinking about the foundation, Ethan said around 3 a.m., both of them lying on Emily's futon that was too small for two people, but they made it work. The one I mentioned after the gala, for kids who grow up without stability or opportunity. I want to actually do it, whether I'm CEO or not. That's a big project. I know. And I want you to help me run it, not as my assistant, but as a partner. You understand what those kids need in a way I never could. You've lived it. Emily propped herself up on one elbow to look at him. You're serious? Completely. Emily, regardless of what happens with the company, I want to build something that matters, with you. Something that helps people the way you helped me. What would Sophie think? About us, I mean. About this becoming serious. I think she'd be thrilled. She already asked me last week if you were going to be her new mommy. Ethan smiled at Emily's expression. I told her it was too soon to talk about that, but she said sometimes you just know, Daddy. 6 years old and already wiser than me. I don't want to replace her mother, Emily said carefully. You wouldn't be. You'd be something different, something she needs, someone who sees her as a whole person, not just the daughter of a billionaire or the girl who lost her mom. Just Sophie. The same way you saw me as just a person that night in the diner. They fell asleep tangled together as dawn started breaking over Chicago, and for the first time in months, Emily slept without nightmares. The next week was brutal. More articles, more speculation, more scrutiny of every interaction between Emily and Ethan. Reporters camped outside Emily's apartment building until the landlord threatened to call the police. Someone leaked Emily's college transcripts, her financial aid applications, trying to prove she'd been scheming for a meal ticket all along. Victoria gave an interview to a national magazine calling Emily a cautionary tale of what happens when wealthy men mistake gratitude for genuine connection. But there were also surprising supporters. Madison wrote an op-ed for the Northwestern student paper about how Emily was the hardest-working student she'd ever met. David from the study group started a social media campaign defending her. Even Mel gave an interview to a local news station saying Emily was the most honest person I ever employed, and I employed a lot of people over 40 years. Patricia Chen publicly criticized her daughter in a statement that made national news. Some of Ethan's business associates, the ones who'd shown up that first morning at the diner, issued a joint letter supporting him and calling for the board to focus on company performance rather than personal relationships. The day before the board vote, Ethan took Emily and Sophie to the diner. Mel had agreed to close for a private dinner, just the three of them in the place where everything started. Sophie was fascinated by the worn boots and the old-fashioned counter. This is where you met Daddy? Right there, Emily said, pointing to the stool where Ethan had sat. He ordered coffee, and your dad counted out his change very carefully. Were you scared? Sophie asked. When you helped him? Because Daddy says you used your own money and you didn't have much. A little scared, Emily admitted, but more than scared, I was sad. Your dad looked so lost that night, and I couldn't just let him be hungry when I could help. Sophie thought about this seriously. That's what Mommy would have done. Daddy says she always helped people even when it was hard. Emily's throat tightened. She glanced at Ethan, who looked like he might cry. Your mommy sounds like she was an amazing person, Emily said gently. She was, but she's not here anymore. Sophie's voice matter-of-fact about death in that way only kids who've experienced loss can be. So I'm glad you are, because Daddy needs someone to help him when he's lost, and I think you're good at that. After Sophie got distracted exploring the kitchen with Mel, Ethan took Emily's hand across the table. Tomorrow, he said, whatever happens, we'll deal with it together. And if they vote you out, then I'll have more time to focus on what actually matters. The foundation, Sophie, you. He squeezed her hand. I've been thinking about what losing the company the first time taught me. that my worth isn't tied to my net worth, that success isn't about how much money you make or how much power you have. It's about the people you love and the impact you make on their lives. That's very philosophical for someone who might lose his company tomorrow. Maybe losing it the first time prepared me for this, taught me I could survive it. He smiled slightly. Besides, I'd rather have you and no company than have the company and lose you. And if the board can't see that I'm a better leader now than I was before you came into my life, then they don't deserve my leadership. That night, Emily lay in bed thinking about choices and consequences, about how one decision in a diner 3 months ago had cascaded into everything that followed, how helping a stranger had led to a scholarship, a job, a relationship, a battle for someone else's company, and a love she'd never expected to find. The board vote was scheduled for 2 p.m. Emily didn't go to the office that day. Ethan had insisted she stay away, said there was no point in both of them sitting through the stress. She tried to focus on homework instead, failed completely. Tried to distract herself with cleaning her apartment, also failed. At 1:55, her phone buzzed. Madison. Whatever happens, you've got people in your corner. Don't forget that. At 2 o'clock, Patricia. Voting now. Fingers crossed. At 2:30, nothing. At 3 o'clock, still nothing. At 3:47, her phone finally rang. Ethan. Emily answered with shaking hands. What happened? 6 to 5, Ethan said. His voice was carefully neutral. I keep my position as CEO. Emily sagged with relief. Thank God. It was close, though, and it came with conditions. The board wants me to appoint a COO to handle day-to-day operations while I focus on strategy. They want quarterly reviews of my leadership, and they want— He paused. They want you to transfer to the foundation full-time. Say it's a conflict of interest for you to report directly to me while we're in a relationship. So I'm out at Cole Technologies. Not out. Reassigned. You'd be director of youth programs at the foundation. Same salary, better benefits, actually. And you'd be doing work that aligns with what you care about. But Emily, if you want to fight this, if you want to stay at the company— No, Emily interrupted. They're right. It is a conflict of interest. And honestly, the foundation work sounds more meaningful anyway. She could hear the relief in his voice. You're sure? I'm sure. When do I start? Whenever you want. We're still setting everything up, so there's flexibility. He paused. We did it, Emily. We survived. Barely. Barely counts. She could hear the smile in his voice. I'm taking Sophie out for ice cream to celebrate. Want to join us? Definitely. They met at Sophie's favorite ice cream place, and Emily watched Ethan lift his daughter onto a stool at the counter, watched Sophie debate between chocolate and strawberry with the seriousness of someone making a life-altering decision, watched them together, and thought about what it would mean to become a real part of this. Emily, what are you getting? Sophie asked. I don't know. What do you recommend? The cookie dough is really good, but the mint chocolate chip is also really good. And the caramel swirl, actually everything is good. This is too hard. Ethan laughed. Get 2 scoops. Live dangerously. Sophie gasped like he'd suggested something scandalous. 2 scoops? Why not? We're celebrating. What are we celebrating? Sophie asked. Daddy gets to keep his job, Emily said. And I'm getting a new job helping kids like me when I was young. Kids who don't have much money? Yeah. Kids who need opportunities and support. Sophie thought about this while the worker scooped her ice cream. Then she said, I think that's better than Daddy's old job, because helping people is more important than making computers work. It's not quite that simple, sweetheart, Ethan said. Why not? He glanced at Emily, and they both smiled. Because really, Sophie had it exactly right. Helping people was more important than making computers work, than making money, than building companies or winning board votes or any of it. Over ice cream, Sophie chattered about school and her friends, and a project about butterflies. Normal kid stuff. Life continuing despite the drama and the press and the scrutiny. And Emily thought about her mother, about how she'd worked herself to death chasing a better life she never got to see, about how she'd told Emily not to end up the same way, to find something that mattered. This mattered. This, sitting in an ice cream shop with a man she loved, and his daughter who was starting to feel like hers, too. Planning a foundation that would help kids who needed it, building something real instead of just surviving. When they left the ice cream shop, Ethan took Emily's hand in front of Sophie for the first time. Sophie noticed immediately. "Are you guys boyfriend and girlfriend now?" she asked. "Yeah," Ethan said. "Is that okay with you?" Sophie pretended to think about it. "I guess so, as long as Emily still reads me stories." "I promise," Emily said, "and as long as you're nice to Daddy, because he gets sad sometimes and needs someone to help him feel better." "I'll be nice to him," Emily assured her. "Okay then." Sophie grabbed Emily's other hand, and they walked down the Chicago sidewalk like that. Sophie in the middle, swinging between them, completely unconcerned about the stares from people who recognized them from the news. Later that night, after Ethan dropped Emily back at her apartment, she sat down and wrote her resignation letter from Cold Technologies. Not because she had to, but because she wanted the closure, wanted to officially end one chapter before beginning the next. She wrote about how grateful she was for the opportunity, for everything she'd learned, for the people who'd supported her. She didn't mention the scandal or the board vote or any of the drama, just gratitude and hope for what came next. Then she started researching youth programs, reading about what actually helped kids escape poverty, started making notes about what the foundation could do, how they could make a difference. Her phone buzzed. "Ethan, Sophie wants you to know that you're her second favorite person now. First is still me, but you're a close second. I think you're moving up in the rankings." Emily smiled and texted back, "Tell her I'm honored, and tell her thank you for sharing her dad." "Ethan, she says he's big enough to share." "Which is fair, I am pretty big." "Emily, that's not what she meant, and you know it." "Ethan, I'm choosing to interpret it my way. Let me have this." Emily laughed alone in her apartment, and it felt good, felt normal. Felt like maybe, finally, things were going to be okay. The next morning, Emily showed up at Northwestern for her business class and found Madison waiting outside the lecture hall with coffee. "Heard you survived another week of drama," Madison said, handing Emily the cup. "Barely, but yeah." "And you're starting at the foundation?" "Soon. We're still working out the details." Madison studied her. "You look different. Happier, maybe. Or at least less like you're carrying the weight of the world." "I am happier, despite everything, despite the press and Victoria, and almost watching Ethan lose his company again. I'm happy." Emily took a sip of coffee. "Is that crazy?" "Maybe a little, but the best things usually are." They walked into class together, and Emily realized she'd made a friend, a real one, someone who'd stuck around through the worst of it and was still here offering coffee and support. The professor started his lecture on strategic management, and Emily took notes the way she always did, meticulous, detailed, trying to absorb everything. But part of her mind was already on the foundation, on the kids they'd help, on building something meaningful with Ethan. After class, she had lunch with the study group. They'd all seen the board vote news, but instead of asking invasive questions, they just welcomed her back and dove into discussion about the upcoming exam. Normal. It felt beautifully, impossibly normal. That evening, Emily went to Ethan's penthouse for dinner. Sophie had made drawings of what she thought the foundation office should look like. Lots of colors and beanbag chairs and a room just for snacks because kids need snacks. "She's not wrong," Emily said, studying the crayon masterpiece. "Kids do need snacks." "We should hire her as a consultant," Ethan suggested. Sophie took this very seriously. "I would be a good consultant. I have lots of ideas about what kids like." After Sophie went to bed, Emily and Ethan sat on his balcony overlooking the city. The same balcony where he'd stood 3 months ago contemplating stepping off. Now he sat there with Emily, planning a future instead of ending everything. "Do you ever think about that night?" Emily asked. "About what would have happened if I hadn't been working at the diner?" "Every day," Ethan admitted. "Some other waitress might have just given me coffee and toast. I might have gone back to that balcony. Sophie would have woken up without a father." "Don't," Emily said quietly. "No, I need to say this. You saved my life, Emily. Not metaphorically, actually saved it. And I know you don't want to be put on a pedestal, don't want to be seen as some kind of saint. But the truth is you saw someone drowning and you threw them a rope. That matters. It changed everything." Emily leaned her head on his shoulder. "You would have survived without me. You're stronger than you think." "Maybe. but I wouldn't have lived. There's a difference. You taught me that. He wrapped his arm around her. Thank you. For the dinner that night. For standing up to Victoria. For fighting for us when it would have been easier to walk away. For everything. They sat in comfortable silence, watching Chicago's lights spread below them like a map of possibility. I've been thinking, Emily said eventually, about what you said at the ice cream shop, about helping people being more important than the business stuff. Sophie was right, but so are you. It's not that simple, because you need the money from the business to fund the foundation. You need success in one area to create opportunity in another. True, but the priority matters, the why behind the what. Ethan shifted to look at her. Before you, I chased success for success's sake. Wanted to prove I'd made it, that I wasn't that poor kid anymore. Now I chase it because it enables me to help people. That's the difference. When do we tell Sophie? Emily asked. About us being serious, about this being long-term. She already knows. Kids always know. He smiled. But we can make it official whenever you're ready. No rush. We take this at whatever pace feels right. Emily thought about her tiny apartment, about the life she'd built through sheer, stubborn survival. Thought about what it would mean to let that go, to merge her life with Ethan's, to become part of something bigger. I'm not ready to move in or anything, she said. I need to keep some independence, some space that's just mine. That's fine, we have time to figure it out. But I am ready for Sophie to know I'm not going anywhere, that she can count on me. She already does, Ethan said. We both do. And sitting there on that balcony where everything had almost ended, Emily realized this was what healing looked like. Not perfect or smooth or without complications, but real. Two broken people choosing to build something together, a lonely billionaire and a scared waitress creating a family from honesty and hope. The city sparkled below them, full of people living their own messy, complicated lives. Somewhere out there, Victoria was probably plotting her next move. The press was probably writing tomorrow's headlines. The board members who'd voted against Ethan were probably scheming. But up here, 43 floors above it all, Emily felt safe, felt loved, felt like she'd finally found the thing her mother had wanted for her all along, something that mattered. I love you, she told Ethan. Said it out loud, let it be real and true and uncomplicated. I love you too, he said back, and meant it the way you mean the truths that change your whole life. Below them, Chicago glittered with promise and possibility, and Emily Harper, formerly a waitress counting pennies, now someone building a future she'd never imagined, looked at it all and felt for the first time in her life like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. 6 months passed in a blur of building something real. The Harper Cole Foundation launched in March with an office in a renovated building on Chicago's South Side. Intentionally not downtown, intentionally in a neighborhood that understood exactly who they were trying to help. Emily had insisted on that. No marble lobbies or expensive art, just clean spaces, good lighting, and rooms where kids could feel comfortable instead of intimidated. Sophie's idea about the snack room had actually made it into the final design. Emily made sure of it. The foundation's mission was straightforward: provide scholarships, mentorship, and support to young people aging out of foster care or growing up in poverty. Kids who needed more than just money. They needed someone to believe in them, the way Ethan's investors had believed in Emily that morning at the diner. Emily threw herself into the work with an intensity that sometimes worried Ethan. She interviewed every scholarship applicant personally, reviewed every proposal, visited every partner organization. She worked late nights and early mornings, bringing the same determination she'd brought to surviving as a waitress. You're going to burn out, Ethan told her one evening when he found her at the foundation office at 9 p.m., still reviewing applications. I'm fine, Emily said, not looking up from the file in front of her. 17-year-old kid from the West Side, aging out of foster care next month, needed housing support and tuition for community college. The kind of case that kept Emily up at night because she remembered being that scared, that desperate for someone to care. Emily? Ethan gently closed the folder. You've been here since 6 this morning. You skipped lunch. When's the last time you actually slept a full night? I sleep fine. You had nightmares 3 times last week. I was there, remember? Emily finally looked up at him. She'd been staying at Ethan's place more often lately, though she still kept her apartment. Still needed that space that was hers alone, even if she rarely used it anymore. These kids need help, Emily said. Every application I don't review is someone who might slip through the cracks. Someone who ends up like I almost did, working dead-end jobs, counting change, wondering if life gets better. And you're one person. You can't save everyone. I can try. Ethan sat down across from her, took her hands. What would you tell one of these kids if they were working themselves into the ground? If they were so focused on helping others that they forgot to take care of themselves? Emily was quiet for a moment. Then, reluctantly, I'd tell them that you can't pour from an empty cup. That rest isn't weakness. That taking care of yourself enables you to help others better. So why don't you take your own advice? Because I owe it to them. All these kids who are where I was, I owe it to them to work as hard as I can. You don't owe anyone your health, Emily, or your sanity. Ethan's voice was gentle but firm. The foundation will still be here tomorrow. These applications will still need review. But you need sleep, real sleep, and food, and maybe a day off occasionally. Emily knew he was right, had known for weeks that she was pushing too hard, using the work to avoid thinking about other things. Like the fact that she still jumped every time someone mentioned the press, still felt like an imposter when she walked into meetings with wealthy donors, still woke up sometimes in Ethan's massive bed convinced this was all temporary and she'd wake up back in her studio apartment with the water-stained ceiling. I'm scared, Emily admitted quietly, that if I slow down, if I stop proving I deserve this, someone will realize they made a mistake, that the scholarship girl doesn't actually belong here. You think I don't feel that way sometimes? Ethan asked. That trailer park kid voice in my head telling me I'm one mistake away from losing everything? You're a billionaire. You run a successful company. You've proven yourself 100 times over. And I still hear it, still have moments where I'm convinced I'm about to be exposed as a fraud. He squeezed her hands. Emily, that fear doesn't go away. You just learn to work alongside it. Learn that your worth isn't determined by how many hours you put in or how perfectly you perform. Emily let out a shaky breath. How do you do it? Keep going when you're scared? I remember why I'm doing it. Not to prove anything to anyone, but because the work matters. Because helping people matters. And because I have people I love who remind me I'm more than my productivity. He pulled her to her feet. Come on, we're going home. You're taking tomorrow off. I can't just... You can. You're the director. You get to make those calls. And I'm making this one for you. Tomorrow, no work. Just rest. Maybe we take Sophie to the aquarium. Maybe we just stay home and do nothing. Your choice. But no applications, no meetings, no foundation business. Emily wanted to argue, but the exhaustion won out. Okay, one day, Ethan agreed. And then we reassess. Maybe hire another program coordinator so you're not trying to do everything yourself. They drove back to Ethan's penthouse in comfortable silence. Sophie was already asleep. The nanny had texted earlier that she'd gone down easily after a bath and 2 stories. Emily had started reading to Sophie every night she stayed over, and the little girl had a rotating collection of favorite books that had to be read in exactly the right order. Emily checked on her anyway, a habit she'd developed over the past months. Sophie slept sprawled across her bed, Mr. Trunk clutched in one arm, her dark hair a messy halo on the pillow. She looked so peaceful, so safe, so different from the anxious child she'd been when Emily first met her, always worried about when her dad would leave again. She's okay, Ethan whispered from the doorway. You don't have to check on her every night. I know, I just like to. Emily pulled Sophie's blanket up a little higher. When I was a kid, nobody checked on me. My mom was always working. I'd put myself to bed, wake myself up, get myself to school, and I told myself I was independent, that I didn't need anyone. But really, I was just lonely. Sophie's lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have her, both of you. Emily turned away from the sleeping child. I never thought I'd get this. A family. People who actually want me around. We more than want you around, Emily. We need you. Later, lying in Ethan's bed, their bed now really, even if Emily couldn't quite make herself think of it that way. She stared at the ceiling and thought about need, about how terrifying it was to let people need you, to become essential to their happiness. Because what happened when you failed them? When you proved you weren't enough? Stop spiraling, Ethan said in the darkness. I can hear you thinking. Sorry. Don't apologize. Just talk to me. What's going on in that head of yours? Emily was quiet for a moment. Then, what if I'm not good at this? The whole family thing. What if I mess up Sophie? What if she starts depending on me and then I disappoint her? You won't. You don't know that. I don't have a model for what good parenting looks like. My mom did her best, but she was always gone, always exhausted. I don't know how to be present for a kid. You're already present for her. You read to her every night. You ask about her day. You remember which friends she's fighting with and which ones she likes. You notice when she's upset and you take time to help her feel better. That's what parenting is, Emily. It's showing up. You're already doing it. But what if it's not enough? What if she needs more than I can give? Ethan rolled to face her in the darkness. Sophie lost her mother when she was 3. For the past 3 years, it's been me and the nanny trying to fill that hole. And we've done okay, but there's been something missing. Someone who sees Sophie as a whole person instead of a tragedy. Someone who talks to her like she matters, not like she's fragile. You do that. You're exactly what she needs. I'm terrified of letting her down. Good. That means you care. The people who should be terrified of parenting are the ones who think they have all the answers. He pulled Emily closer. We'll mess up, both of us. We'll make mistakes and have bad days and sometimes say the wrong thing. But we'll do it together. And we'll do it with love. That's all any kid really needs. Emily let herself believe him, at least for tonight. The next day, true to his word, Ethan made Emily take off. They did go to the aquarium, all 3 of them. Sophie was fascinated by the jellyfish, declared them her new favorite animal, and insisted on buying a stuffed jellyfish from the gift shop that she named Dr. Tentacles. Why Doctor? Emily asked as they got ice cream afterward, another tradition Sophie had insisted on. Because he's very smart, Sophie explained with 6-year-old logic. All jellyfish are smart. They don't have brains, but they survive, so they must be doing something right. Ethan caught Emily's eye and smiled. This was what happiness looked like, Emily realized. Not some grand achievement or perfect moment. Just a normal Saturday with a kid explaining jellyfish intelligence while chocolate ice cream dripped down her chin. That evening, after Sophie went to bed, Emily and Ethan sat in his living room and talked about the future. Real, concrete plans instead of vague hopes. I've been thinking about us, Ethan said. About what comes next. Emily's stomach tightened. Okay. I want you to move in, officially. Not just staying here most nights, but actually living here. Making this your home, too. Ethan, I know you're scared. I know you want to keep your independence, but Emily, you're already part of this family. Sophie thinks of you as her parent. I think of you as my partner. The only person who doesn't seem to accept that you belong here is you. Emily looked around the penthouse. At the space she'd come to know intimately over the past months. At Sophie's drawings on the fridge. At the bookshelf that now held Emily's textbooks alongside Ethan's business texts. At the life they'd built together. What about my apartment? She asked. Keep it if you want. Use it as an office or storage or just hold on to it as a security blanket. I don't care. I just want you here. Actually here, not visiting. What if it doesn't work? What if we drive each other crazy living together full time? Then we'll figure it out. But Emily, we're already living together. We're already navigating the hard stuff. Making it official doesn't change the reality. It just acknowledges it. Emily thought about her studio apartment, about the water-stained ceiling and the smell of Thai food from downstairs, and the futon that was too small for one person, let alone 2. About the life she'd had before Ethan, before Hope. Okay, she said, I'll move in, for real. Ethan's smile was worth every moment of fear. They told Sophie the next morning over pancakes. She took the news with typical 6-year-old enthusiasm, jumped up and down, declared it the best day ever, immediately started planning how to rearrange her room so Emily could help her redecorate. Can we paint it purple? Sophie asked. Sophie, and get those glow-in-the-dark stars? And maybe a bigger bookshelf because Emily keeps bringing me new books? We can do whatever you want, Ethan said, looking at Emily with such open affection that she felt her chest tighten with emotion she didn't have words for. Moving in took longer than Emily expected, not because she had that much stuff, years of poverty had taught her to travel light, but because every item she packed felt symbolic. Every decision about what to keep and what to donate felt weighted with meaning. Madison helped her pack up the studio apartment one Saturday in April. "You're really doing this," Madison said, wrapping Emily's few dishes in newspaper. "Moving in with the billionaire boyfriend. It's like a fairy tale." "It doesn't feel like a fairy tale. It feels terrifying and real and like I might throw up from nerves." "That's how you know it's real. Fairy tales don't include nausea." Madison paused, holding up a chipped mug Emily had owned for 7 years. "You keeping this?" Emily looked at the mug. She'd bought it at a thrift store when she first moved to Chicago, back when buying anything felt like a luxury. It was ugly and cheap, and she'd drunk 1,000 cups of instant coffee from it during the hardest years of her life. "No," Emily said. "Donate it. I don't need it anymore." "Symbolic," Madison observed. "Probably, but accurate." Emily sat down on her futon, also headed for donation. "I'm leaving this life behind, the poverty, the struggling, the counting every penny, and part of me feels guilty about it, like I'm abandoning everyone still stuck here." "You're not abandoning anyone. You're literally running a foundation to help people escape poverty. That's the opposite of abandoning them." "I know, but it still feels weird, like I'm betraying my roots or something." Madison sat down next to her. "Emily, you can honor where you came from without staying there. You can remember what it was like to struggle without staying stuck in struggle. That's not betrayal. That's growth." "When did you get so wise?" "I've always been wise. You just haven't been paying attention." Madison bumped Emily's shoulder with hers. "For what it's worth, I think you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing, building a life that matters with people you love. Your mom would be proud." Emily felt tears prick her eyes. "You think so?" "I know so. She worked herself to death trying to give you opportunities, and you took those opportunities and turned them into something beautiful. That's the best tribute you could give her." After Madison left, Emily sat alone in her nearly empty apartment and cried. For her mother who'd never see this. For the girl she'd been who couldn't have imagined this future. For all the years of fear and loneliness and wondering if life would ever get better. And then she dried her eyes, picked up the last box, and left that apartment for the final time. The foundation's first scholarship ceremony was held in May. 23 kids receiving full rides to college or trade school, plus stipends for housing and living expenses. 23 futures transformed. Emily stood at the podium looking out at the young faces in the audience. Some confident, some terrified, all of them hungry for a chance, and felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. "I was you," Emily began, and the room went quiet. 6 months ago, I was a waitress with $10 to my name and no idea how I'd make rent. I dropped out of community college because I couldn't afford it. I worked 60-hour weeks and still came up short. I was tired and scared and convinced that my life would always be exactly what it was in that moment. She saw some of the kids nodding. They knew that feeling. And then something happened. I made a choice to help someone even though I couldn't afford it. And that choice changed everything. Not because I expected anything in return, I didn't, but because that's what we do when we're human. We help each other, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Emily glanced at Ethan, who sat in the front row with Sophie. He gave her an encouraging nod. "The people who created this foundation believe in you, not because you've proven yourself or earned it through perfect grades or flawless behavior, but because you deserve a chance. Everyone deserves a chance. And sometimes all it takes is one person saying, 'I believe in you,' to change the trajectory of an entire life." She paused, emotion threatening to choke her voice. "So here's what I want you to know. You belong here. You're not charity cases. You're not projects. You're talented, capable people who've survived circumstances that would have broken most adults. The strength it took to get to this moment, to survive poverty, abuse, instability, whatever you've been through, that strength will carry you through whatever comes next. Don't let anyone make you feel small. Don't let anyone tell you that you don't deserve this. You do." The applause was thunderous. Some kids were crying. Parents, the ones who'd made it, wiped tears from their eyes. Emily stepped away from the podium before she completely lost her composure. Afterward, kids lined up to meet her, to shake her hand, to thank her. One girl, maybe 16, pulled Emily aside. "I read about you online," the girl said quietly. "About the articles calling you a gold digger. About people saying you were using Mr. Cole." Emily tensed. "Okay. I just wanted you to know that I didn't believe them, because I know what it's like to have people assume the worst about you because you're poor. And I think what you did, standing up for yourself, defending your relationship, that was brave. You didn't let them make you small. Emily's throat tightened. Thank you. What's your name? Destiny. I'm going to Northwestern in the fall. Business program. Because of you. Because of you, Emily corrected. You're the one who worked hard, who applied, who earned this. I just helped open the door. You opened more than a door. You showed me it was possible. Destiny smiled shyly. Thank you for everything. After the ceremony, Ethan found Emily in the foundation's break room, sitting alone with her head in her hands. You okay? He asked. Those kids, they're all counting on us. What if we let them down? We won't. You can't know that. What if the foundation runs out of money? What if we can't help everyone who needs it? What if... Ethan knelt in front of her chair, took her hands. Emily, you're doing it again, taking the weight of the world on your shoulders. We have a good team. We have funding. We have systems in place to support these kids beyond just the scholarship. You're not alone in this. I know. Emily struggled to find words. I see myself in all of them, and I remember how close I came to giving up. How many times I thought about quitting, about accepting that my life would always be hard, and I want to save all of them from that feeling, from that fear. You can't save everyone, but you can give them tools and support and belief. The rest is up to them. Ethan pulled her to her feet. Come on. Sophie wants to take you out for celebratory dinner. She's been planning it all week. She has? Yep. Chose the restaurant and everything. Said we have to go to the place with the good breadsticks because today is special. Emily smiled despite herself. The good breadsticks are very important. Apparently crucial. Who am I to argue with a 6-year-old's logic? Dinner was at a family-style Italian restaurant Sophie loved. They sat in a booth. Sophie insisted Emily sit next to her instead of across from her, and ordered too much food and laughed at Sophie's stories about school. Marcus pulled my hair again, Sophie reported seriously. So I told him that's not how you show you like someone. You show you like someone by being nice and sharing your snacks and asking if they want to play, not by pulling hair. What did Marcus say? Emily asked. He said sorry and gave me his fruit snacks at lunch, so I think he learned. Sounds like he did. You're a good teacher, Sophie. I learned from you. You teach people stuff all the time, like today with all those kids. You taught them that they matter. Emily's eyes stung. Thank you, sweetheart. You're welcome. Can I have more breadsticks? Later, after Sophie had gone to bed and Emily and Ethan were cleaning up the kitchen together, a routine they'd fallen into without discussing it, Ethan said, I've been thinking about something. Yeah? Sophie's been asking questions about us, about whether you're going to be her mom now. Emily's hand stilled in the dishwater. What did you tell her? That it's complicated, that you love her, but that loving someone and being their parent are different things, that her mom will always be her mom, but that doesn't mean you can't also be important in her life. That sounds like a good answer. She didn't love it. She wants clear labels, wants to know what to call you. Ethan dried a plate, set it in the cabinet. I told her it was up to you, that she should ask you what you're comfortable with. I don't know what I'm comfortable with, Emily admitted. I love her. Of course I love her. But claiming the title of parent feels presumptuous, like I'm trying to replace someone irreplaceable. You're not replacing anyone. You're adding to her life, giving her something she needs. Ethan paused. For what it's worth, I think you're already her parent in every way that matters. You show up. You care. You put her needs alongside yours. That's what parenting is. Emily rinsed the last dish, dried her hands, turned to face Ethan fully. What if I mess this up? What if I fail her? Then you apologize and do better next time. Same as any parent. He pulled Emily into his arms. Emily, you're not going to be perfect. Neither am I. We're going to make mistakes and have bad days and sometimes get it wrong, but we'll do it together, and we'll do it with love. That has to be enough because it's all we've got. Emily buried her face in his shoulder, breathing in the familiar scent of his cologne mixed with laundry detergent. I'm scared. I know, me too, but we'll be scared together. Summer came, and with it, unexpected challenges. The foundation was growing faster than they'd anticipated. More applications than they could handle, more kids needing help, more demands on Emily's time and energy. She hired 2 more program coordinators like Ethan had suggested, brought in a development director to handle fundraising, built a team that could share the load, but she still felt the weight of every kid they couldn't help, every application they had to reject. "We're doing good work," Ethan reminded her during one particularly hard day when they'd had to deny funding to a 17-year-old kid who needed it desperately. "We can't save everyone." "Why not?" Emily's voice broke. "Why can't we just help everyone who asks? We have the money. Why are we setting limits?" "Because we need to be sustainable. Because we need to make sure we can keep helping kids for years to come, not just burn through resources in 1 year and then collapse." Ethan was using his patient voice, the one that meant he'd explained this before. "Emily, you know this. We talked about it when we set up the foundation structure." "I know. Emily stared at the rejection letter she'd have to send. "This kid reminds me of me. Single mom, working 2 jobs, can't afford books, let alone tuition. And we're telling him no because of budget constraints. We're telling him no for this year. We're putting him on the wait list for next year. And we're connecting him with other resources that might help in the meantime." Ethan took the letter from Emily's hands. "I know it feels like we're failing him, but we're not. We're being realistic about our capacity so we can keep doing this work long term." Emily knew he was right, hated that he was right. But knowing something intellectually and accepting it emotionally were different things. That night, she couldn't sleep, kept thinking about that kid and all the others they couldn't help, kept feeling like she was failing somehow, like having resources and not using them to help everyone was a moral failing. Around 2 a.m., she gave up on sleep and went to the living room, found Sophie sitting on the couch with Mr. Trunk, wide awake. "Hey, sweetheart," Emily said softly. "What are you doing up?" "Couldn't sleep. Had a bad dream." Sophie's voice was small, scared in a way that made Emily's chest hurt. "Want to talk about it?" "I dreamed you left, that you decided you didn't want to be here anymore and you just disappeared like Mommy did." Emily sat down next to Sophie, pulled her close. "I'm not going anywhere, baby, I promise." "But what if something happens to you? What if you get sick like Mommy? What if you just decide you don't love us anymore?" "Sophie, look at me." Emily waited until the little girl met her eyes. "I love you and your dad more than I can explain, and I'm not leaving, not because something happens, not because I change my mind. I'm here, for good." "How do you know? How can you promise that?" It was the same question Emily asked herself constantly. How do you promise forever when life is so uncertain? How do you guarantee you won't fail people who are counting on you? "I can't promise that nothing bad will ever happen," Emily said honestly. "Life is unpredictable and sometimes scary, but I can promise that I choose to be here. Every single day, I choose you and your dad. I choose this family, and that choice is mine to make. Nobody can take it from me." Sophie thought about this. "Daddy said you used to be sad a lot. Before you came here." I was. I was lonely and scared and didn't think my life would ever get better." "Are you still sad?" "Sometimes, but mostly I'm happy now. Because I have you guys, because I get to help kids through the foundation, because I have a purpose beyond just surviving." Emily tucked Sophie's hair behind her ear. "You know what helped me stop being sad?" "What?" "Letting people love me. I spent so long thinking I had to do everything alone that asking for help was weak. But your dad taught me that letting people in is actually the bravest thing you can do. And you taught me that love doesn't have to be perfect to be real." "I love you," Sophie said simply. "Even though you're not my real mom, you feel like my real mom." Emily felt tears slide down her cheeks. "I love you too, Sophie, so much." They sat together on the couch until Sophie fell asleep against Emily's side. Emily held her, this child who'd claimed her as family, and thought about all the ways life surprised you. How helping a stranger in a diner could lead to this. A 6-year-old sleeping in your arms, trusting you to stay, to keep showing up, to be the parent she needed. Ethan found them there in the morning, both asleep on the couch. He covered them with the blanket and let them sleep. And when Emily woke up hours later with a crick in her neck and Sophie drooling on her shoulder, she felt something settle in her chest. Some final piece of acceptance clicking into place. This was her life now. Not visiting, not temporary. Actually, permanently hers. September brought new challenges when Victoria resurfaced. She'd been quiet for months, still on the Chen Foundation board, but stripped of most of her power after the hospital funding debacle. But apparently she'd been planning her comeback. The article appeared in a national business magazine. The Price of Charity: How One Foundation's Quick Growth Raises Questions About Sustainability and Ethics. It was a hit piece, thinly veiled as investigative journalism. It questioned the foundation's vetting process, suggested Emily was giving preferential treatment to scholarship recipients who reminded her of herself, implied that Ethan was using the foundation as a tax write-off while Emily played at being a philanthropist. And prominently featured throughout the article were quotes from Victoria Chen, identified as a philanthropist and foundation board member familiar with the challenges of sustainable giving. "She's still bitter," Ethan said, reading the article on his tablet while Emily paced their living room. "Ignore it. I can't ignore it. This is going national, Ethan. People who are considering donating to the foundation are going to read this and think we're a scam. Then we prove we're not. We release our financials. We show our vetting process. We let the work speak for itself." What if that's not enough? What if Victoria destroys everything we've built? Ethan set down the tablet, stood up to face Emily directly. "Then we rebuild. But I don't think it'll come to that. Victoria's credibility is shot after the hospital thing. Most people see this for what it is, a bitter ex trying to cause trouble." "You sound very calm about someone trying to destroy our foundation." "I've learned something over the past year," Ethan said. "The people who matter will see the truth. The ones who are determined to believe the worst will believe it regardless of what we do. So we focus on the work, we stay transparent, and we trust that our reputation will speak for itself." Emily wanted to believe him, but panic was clawing at her chest. The same panic she'd felt during the gala scandal, during the board vote, during every moment when it felt like everything was about to fall apart. "Hey," Ethan said gently, pulling her into his arms. "We've survived worse than a bitter magazine article. We'll survive this too." The foundation's board, which included Patricia Chen, much to Victoria's probably annoyance, met the next day to discuss their response. Patricia was furious. "My daughter is out of control," Patricia said bluntly. "And I apologize on behalf of my family. This article is vindictive and baseless." "Should we sue for libel?" one board member asked. "No," Emily said. Everyone turned to look at her. "Suing just gives the story more attention, makes us look defensive. We respond with transparency and facts. We publish our financials. We show our process. We let donors and the public see exactly how we operate. That's the best defense against accusations of impropriety." The board agreed. Within 2 days, they'd published a comprehensive breakdown of the foundation's finances, their selection criteria for scholarships, testimonials from recipients, and third-party audits showing everything was above board. The response was overwhelmingly positive. Donors doubled down on their support. Other foundations reached out offering partnerships. And several journalists wrote follow-up pieces pointing out the holes in the original article, noting that Victoria's quotes were the only negative voices while everyone else interviewed praised the foundation's work. Victoria's attempt to destroy them had backfired spectacularly. "Some people never learn," Patricia said during a phone call with Emily. "My daughter can't accept that her bitterness is what's holding her back, not your success. I'm sorry you've had to deal with this." It's not your fault," Emily said. "No, but I raised her. And somewhere along the way, I failed to teach her that other people's happiness isn't a personal attack." Patricia sighed. "For what it's worth, Emily, you've handled all of this with more grace than most people twice your age could manage. Your mother would be proud." After the call ended, Emily sat in her office at the foundation and thought about her mother. About all the lessons she'd learned watching her work herself to death. That kindness matters even when it's hard. That showing up is half the battle. That love means sacrifice, but also the lessons her mother had never meant to teach, that you can work yourself to death and still not escape poverty, that the system is rigged against people without resources, that sometimes kindness and hard work aren't enough. The foundation was Emily's attempt to change that last lesson, to make kindness and hard work actually lead somewhere, to give kids the opportunities her mother had wanted for her but never lived to see. October brought Sophie's 7th birthday. She wanted a party at the aquarium because jellyfish are still the best animals, with all her school friends and everyone from the foundation who wants to come. "Sophie, the foundation has a staff of 12 people now," Emily said. "That's a lot of guests. So? Daddy's rich. He can afford it. Ethan tried not to laugh at his daughter's blunt assessment of their finances. She's not wrong. They threw the party. It was chaotic and loud and perfect. Sophie wore a jellyfish costume she'd insisted on, Dr. Tentacles in hand, explaining to anyone who'd listen about how jellyfish survived for millions of years without brains. Emily stood back watching the chaos. Kids running around, parents trying to corral them. Ethan deep in conversation with another dad about something boring and work-related, and felt a wave of gratitude so intense it nearly knocked her over. This was her family now. Not just Ethan and Sophie, but the foundation staff, the scholarship kids, the donors who believed in the work. The community they'd built together from one act of kindness in a rainy night diner. Madison appeared at her elbow with a glass of wine. You look contemplative. Just thinking about how different my life is from a year ago. Yeah, you went from counting pennies to planning parties at aquariums. Bit of a change. Madison clinked her glass against Emily's. You doing okay? I know the Victoria thing was stressful. I'm good. Better than good, actually. Emily watched Sophie grab Ethan's hand, pull him toward the jellyfish exhibit again. A year ago, I was alone and scared and convinced my life would always be exactly what it was. Now I have this. All of this. Sometimes I can't believe it's real. It's real. You earned it. I don't know about earned. I just made a choice to help someone who needed it. And that choice led to everything else. That's how life works sometimes. One decision cascades into 1,000 others. Madison studied her. You're different now. More confident. Less scared. I'm still scared. Just scared of different things. Not scared of being poor anymore. Scared of failing the people who count on me. Scared of not being enough for Ethan and Sophie. Scared of losing this. That's love. It makes you vulnerable, but it's worth it. Yeah, Emily agreed quietly. It is. That night, after the party cleanup and getting Sophie to bed despite her sugar-high protests, Emily and Ethan collapsed on their couch, exhausted. 7-year-olds have too much energy, Ethan said. Agreed. How did we survive that party? Barely. He pulled Emily against his side. But she was happy. That's what matters. She asked me something yesterday, Emily said. Asked if I was going to be her mom for real or just her dad's girlfriend. Ethan went still. What did you say? I said I didn't know what labels made sense, that I loved her, but I didn't want to replace her mother. She said that was a cop-out answer. Emily laughed softly. She's not wrong. What do you want? Ethan asked carefully. Not what you think Sophie wants or what I want. What do you want? Emily thought about it. About the fear that had held her back for months. About the life she'd never imagined wanting because it seemed too impossible to hope for. I want to be her mom, Emily said quietly. Not biologically, not as a replacement for the mother she lost, but as the person who shows up every day, who reads her bedtime stories and helps with homework and teaches her that she matters. I want that to be real and official and not just something we're dancing around. Okay, Ethan said simply. Okay. Okay. Let's make it official. Emily's heart started pounding. What does that mean? Ethan shifted, reached into his pocket, pulled out a small velvet box. Oh my God, Emily whispered. I've been carrying this around for 2 months waiting for the right moment. Thought about doing something elaborate, fancy restaurant, romantic sunset, all that. But this feels right. Just us after a chaotic birthday party, talking about what we want our future to look like. He opened the box. The ring was beautiful, simple, elegant, exactly what Emily would have chosen if she'd been asked. Emily Harper, will you marry me? Will you officially become Sophie's mom and my wife and my partner in all of this? Will you keep showing me that kindness matters and that love is worth fighting for? Emily was crying. Yes, yes, of course, yes. He slid the ring on her finger and kissed her, and Emily thought about trajectories, about how one choice to feed a stranger, to show kindness when it cost her something, had led to this moment, to a proposal from a man she loved, to becoming a mother to a child who needed her, to building a life she'd never dared dream of. They told Sophie the next morning. Her reaction was predictably enthusiastic. Does this mean Emily is my real mom now? Sophie asked. If she wants to be, Ethan said, looking at Emily. I want to be. Emily confirmed. If you want me to be? Obviously, I want you to be. I've wanted it forever. Sophie threw her arms around Emily. Can I call you Mom? Emily's throat was too tight to speak. She just nodded. Mom, Sophie tested the word. Sounds right. The wedding was small, intimate, nothing like the society events Ethan could have afforded. They got married at the courthouse in November with just their closest people there. Sophie as flower girl, Madison as Emily's maid of honor, Patricia Chen beaming from the front row, the foundation staff taking photos. No press, no spectacle. Just two people promising to show up for each other, to keep choosing love even when it was hard, to build something real and lasting from the ashes of their old lives. Emily wore a simple white dress. Ethan wore a navy suit. Sophie wore her jellyfish costume because weddings should be fun and comfortable, Mom. Emily didn't argue. Let her daughter, wear whatever made her happy. The vows were traditional, but when it came time for the rings, Ethan added something. You saved my life, he said. That night in the diner, you gave me more than dinner. You gave me hope. You reminded me that people could still be kind without wanting anything in return. You taught me that success isn't about money or power. It's about impact, about making someone's day better, about showing up for the people you love. I promise to keep showing up for you, Emily, every single day for the rest of our lives. Emily's own vows were simpler. I promise to keep choosing you, keep choosing us, keep believing that love and kindness can change everything, because you've already changed my life completely. And I can't wait to see what we build together. They kissed, Sophie cheered, Madison Wolfe whistled, and Emily Harper became Emily Cole, though she'd keep using Harper professionally because that was her mother's name, and she wanted to honor where she'd come from. The reception was at a restaurant Sophie loved, the one with good breadsticks, and they ate too much food and laughed too hard and danced to music that made the older guests cringe. Patricia pulled Emily aside at one point. I'm proud of you. Not just for this, she gestured at the wedding celebration, but for everything. The foundation, your relationship with Ethan, how you've handled Sophie. You've turned that kindness you showed in the diner into something sustainable and meaningful. I couldn't have done it without help. None of us can, but you were brave enough to accept help when it was offered. That's rarer than you think. Patricia squeezed Emily's hand. Your mother would be proud. I wish she could have seen this. Me too, Emily said quietly. That night, after Sophie had fallen asleep exhausted from the celebration, Emily and Ethan stood on their balcony looking out at Chicago. The same balcony where Ethan had stood a year ago, contemplating ending everything. Now he stood there with his wife, planning a future instead of ending his past. We should go back to the diner, Emily said suddenly. Now? No, but soon. I want to see Mel, want to sit in that booth where everything started, want to remember what it felt like to be that scared and lonely and convinced life would never get better. Why would you want to remember that? So I don't forget. So I remember why the foundation matters, why helping people matters, why one choice can change everything. She leaned against him. I don't want to lose that perspective now that I'm not struggling anymore. You won't, Ethan said. You're not the kind of person who forgets where she came from. They went back to the diner the next week. Just the two of them. Sophie was at a friend's house for a play date. Mel was there, older and gruffer than ever, but genuinely pleased to see Emily. Heard you married that guy who couldn't afford coffee, Mel said. Congrats or condolences, whichever seems more appropriate. Definitely congrats, Emily said, laughing. They sat in the same booth where everything had started. Mel brought them coffee without being asked, the same burnt diner coffee Emily had poured for years. You ever think about that night? Ethan asked, looking at the counter where he'd sat counting change. About what would have happened if you hadn't been working, if it had been a different waitress. All the time, Emily admitted. I think about all the small choices that led to that moment. My mom getting sick, so I had to drop out of school, getting a job at this particular diner, being scheduled to close that particular night. All these tiny decisions cascading into the moment you walked through that door. Fate? I don't know about fate, but I know that choices matter, that small acts of kindness can have consequences we never see coming. That one decision to help someone, really help them, not just go through the motions, can change both your lives. Ethan took her hand across the table. I'm glad you were working that night. Glad you chose to help me. Glad you didn't just give me coffee and toast and send me back out into the rain. I'm glad you came back. Glad you showed up at the diner the next morning with all those people. Glad you saw something in me worth investing in. I saw someone worth knowing. The investment part came later. They finished their coffee and left a $100 tip. Emily's small way of thanking Mel for being part of their story. Walked out into the Chicago afternoon hand in hand. Over the next year, the foundation grew. They helped over 100 kids in their second year, partnered with other organizations, started expanding to other cities, hired more staff, built something that would outlast both of them. Emily finished her degree at Northwestern with honors, applied to graduate school because she realized she wanted to study nonprofit management formally, wanted to learn how to do this work even better, got accepted to 3 programs and chose the one that would let her keep running the foundation while studying. Sophie thrived, grew more confident, more secure, more certain that the adults in her life weren't going anywhere. She still had hard days, still missed her biological mother, still sometimes woke up scared that Emily would leave. But they worked through it together. Family therapy helped. So did consistency. So did love. Ethan stepped back from day-to-day operations at Cole Technologies like the board had wanted, hired a strong COO, and found he was happier focusing on strategy and innovation instead of fighting corporate battles. He spent more time with Sophie, more time with Emily, more time on work that felt meaningful instead of just profitable. And Emily finally stopped waiting for the other shoe to drop. Stopped expecting to wake up back in her studio apartment with the water-stained ceiling. Stopped feeling like an imposter in her own life. She'd learned something important over the past year and a half. That you don't have to earn love or opportunities through suffering. That accepting help doesn't make you weak. That letting people in, really in, past all your defenses and fears, is terrifying but necessary. That kindness matters even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. 2 years after that rainy night in the diner, Emily and Ethan hosted a gala for the foundation. A real one this time, with Emily as the host instead of the uncomfortable guest. She wore a beautiful dress and held her head high and introduced donors to scholarship recipients with genuine pride. Victoria Chen was not invited. During her speech, Emily told the story of how the foundation started, about a billionaire who'd lost everything and a waitress with $10 left. About how one choice to show kindness had cascaded into helping hundreds of kids transform their lives. I used to think I was lucky, Emily said, looking out at the crowd. That everything good that happened to me was luck. Being in the right place at the right time, meeting the right person, catching the right break. But I've learned something. Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. I'd prepared my whole life for that moment in the diner, prepared by learning what it means to struggle, to survive, to maintain your humanity, even when the world tries to strip it away. And when the opportunity came to help someone, I was ready. She paused, finding Ethan in the crowd. He smiled at her, and Sophie, sitting next to him in a fancy dress she'd surprisingly agreed to wear, waved enthusiastically. The kids we help through this foundation, they've been preparing their whole lives too. They know struggle, they know survival, they know resilience in ways most people never have to learn. All they need is opportunity, someone to believe in them, someone to open a door and say, "You deserve this." That's what we do here. We prepare kids for opportunity, and we provide the opportunity for them to prepare for everything that comes next. The applause was genuine this time, not performance. Real appreciation for real work. After the gala, Emily kicked off her heels and collapsed on the couch next to Sophie, who'd fallen asleep halfway through the drive home. "Good speech," Ethan said, sitting on Sophie's other side. "Thanks. I was terrified." "Couldn't tell. You looked confident." "I've learned to fake confidence pretty well, survival skill." Emily smiled. "But I meant what I said, about preparation meeting opportunity, about how all those hard years weren't wasted. They taught me things I need to do this work." "Your mom would be proud," Ethan said quietly. "Yeah, I think she would." Emily looked at her daughter sleeping between them, at her husband on the other side, at the life they'd built together from kindness and hope and stubborn determination. "I think she'd be happy I finally found what she wanted for me, something that matters, someone to love, a reason to keep going beyond just survival." They sat in comfortable silence, and Emily thought about how far she'd come from that scared waitress counting change, about how one choice, to feed a stranger, to show compassion when it cost her something, had transformed not just her life, but hundreds of others. She thought about the kids they'd helped who were now in college, building careers, creating their own futures, about the ones who'd come to her office crying because they'd never thought they'd escape poverty, and now they had a real chance, about the letters from parents thanking the foundation for seeing potential in their children when everyone else had written them off. This was what her mother had worked herself to death trying to achieve. Not wealth or status or comfortable living, but impact, meaning, the ability to make someone else's life better. Emily had that now. Not through luck, not through charity, but through choosing kindness even when it was hard, through accepting help when it was offered, through building something real with people she loved. The journey from that rainy night to this moment hadn't been smooth. There'd been scandal and doubt and Victoria Chen and 1,000 small battles. There'd been fear and imposter syndrome and nights when Emily was convinced she'd lose everything. But they'd survived. More than survived. They'd thrived. Built a family, a foundation, a life worth living instead of just enduring. Sophie stirred, mumbled something about jellyfish in her sleep. Emily smoothed her hair back, overwhelmed with love for this child who'd claimed her as family, who'd taught her that you could love someone without being perfect at it. "We should get her to bed," Ethan said quietly. "In a minute, I just want to stay here a bit longer." "Okay," he agreed. So they sat, Emily, Ethan, and Sophie sleeping between them, in the penthouse that had become home. And Emily thought about beginnings and endings and the infinite possibilities between them, about how life could surprise you if you were brave enough to let it, how kindness could echo forward in ways you never imagined. She'd been a waitress who gave a stranger dinner on the worst night of both their lives. Now she was a wife, a mother, a director of a foundation helping hundreds of kids escape the poverty she'd known too well. The transformation seemed impossible when she thought about it too hard, but it had happened through a series of small choices: to help someone who needed it, to accept help when it was offered, to keep showing up even when she was terrified, to choose love over fear. And that, Emily realized, was the real lesson. Not that one dramatic moment could change your life, though it could, but that every choice mattered, every small act of kindness, every time you chose to show up instead of hide, every moment you chose hope over despair. Her story had started in a diner with $10 and a hungry stranger. It had led here, to a family she loved, work that mattered, a life that felt full instead of empty. She wouldn't change any of it, not the hard parts, not the struggles, not even the scandal and the Victoria Chens of the world. Because all of it had led to this moment, sitting on a couch with the people she loved most, knowing that tomorrow she'd wake up and do work that mattered, and that was enough, more than enough. It was everything.